All right, good evening everyone, and thank you for joining us, and welcome to tonight's Ordinary Council meeting, our last for the calendar year, the 9th of December 2025. Thank you for those who've joined us in the gallery and also those online who are watching this evening. We do value your presence. It's good to have community here with us looking at the decisions that we're making to shape our city. A reminder for everyone just to remain respectful and to observe our decision making in accordance with the governance rules and any safety considerations. And on that note, I will now just note that we do have probably the biggest agenda we've had all year as we come to the end of the year, not having an ordinary meeting in November. So we've got 18 reports to consider, a full agenda, and if need be, as the evening goes on in accordance with the governance rules, we may take a 10-minute break if we're looking to go beyond the 2 hours, if that is to be the case. So I just wanted to flag that now. As we move on now, I just would like to acknowledge the fellow councillors. We've got the full complement with us this evening, and also the executive team who join us seated next to me. I've got CEO Glenn Patterson, and on my left, Jen Bednar, the Director of Customer and Corporate Services, as well as Catherine Surlis, the Director of City Planning and Infrastructure. And we're also joined by Acting Director of Community Life, Callum Paddy, at the end on my right. So welcome to you and to all officers who are joining us here as well. I'll move now to item 1.1, which is our Statement of Acknowledgement. And the City of Casey, we proudly acknowledge the traditional owners, Casey's Aboriginal communities and their rich culture, and pay respect to elders past, present and future. We acknowledge Aboriginal people as Australia's first people and as the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we work and live. Item 1.2, I'll now read our City of Casey diversity statement. The City of Casey is home to a remarkable diversity of cultures, languages, faiths, identities, landscapes and stories, from our first Australians to our most recent arrivals and every wave in between. The City of Casey welcomes and represents all community members and their respective ambitions to live healthy and happy lives. These intersecting and overlapping community stories form our collective identity, and they contribute to our evolving rich history. We recognise this diversity as our strength, and we aim to share, nurture and celebrate it. I'll now move to item 2, which is the confirmation of our council minutes. So there was one previous minutes that we need to confirm. And that's for the meeting held on the 18th of November 2025. These have been circulated to community and to councillors. Councillors, do we have a mover and a seconder to confirm the minutes of that meeting? Councillor Ross moving and Councillor Walter seconding. I'll now put that to a vote. Councillors, all those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you, councillors. That's carried. We'll now move to item 3, which is declaration of interests. I've considered my obligations under section 130 of the Local Government Act 2020, and I do not have a conflict of interest relevant to the agenda papers. Do my fellow councillors have any conflicts of interest in the agenda that they wish to declare? No? And do any council officers have a conflict of interest regarding reports presented this evening? No? Thank you, councillors and officers. On that note, we'll now move to item 4, which is officer reports. We've got 17 officer reports this evening. And we will get started with item 4.1 as per the agenda, which is the adoption of Casey Community Local Law 2025. And we have Officer Miss Chloe Casey, Manager of Communications and Corporate Governance, to present the report. Miss Casey.
Good evening, councillors. The Casey Community Local Law 2025 has been developed following a comprehensive review of the Casey Community Local Law 2023 to address emerging community needs and feedback received during extensive public consultation processes. The Local Law 2025 aims to balance individual freedoms with community wellbeing, safety and amenity. Adoption ensures compliance with the Local Government Act 2020 and provides a clear regulatory framework to address local issues. The consultation process for the development of the local law has been extensive and inclusive. We have ensured that the local law reflected the broader interests of the community. As we have mentioned in previous council reports, the first phase of community engagement ran from the 21st of April through to the 1st of June 2025. There were over 1,200 contributions from our community through surveying, community in-person pop-ups and door knocks. This provided broad and representative understanding of community priorities. Following this engagement, the draft local law was placed on public exhibition for 28 days. We received 74 submissions and 1 verbal presentation during that process. We have also heard from you, our councillors, throughout the process. Submissions received during the community engagement process were considered as part of preparing the Local Law 2025, with outcomes of these considerations attached to the council report tonight. The council report also compares themes from the most recent community engagement across the 5 highest rated clauses and what has changed in the local law as a result. I would like to draw attention to a number of changes that have been made since the draft document was placed on public exhibition. Part 5, shipping containers. The requirement for a local law permit for shipping containers has been replaced with an amenity-based standard, ensuring containers do not detract from the character or comfort of the immediate area. Part 5, vehicles and machinery. The clause where a parent or guardian of a person under the age of 18 could be found guilty for recreational vehicle contraventions has been removed. Part 14, enforcement, restricts the actions of authorised officers in urgent circumstances to only what is necessary to abate or minimise the risk or danger present, and a new definition of land has removed buildings and other structures from the definition, clarifying that council officers cannot enter buildings without the occupier's consent or warrant. Part 8, waste. The 24-hour bin clause has been included in the local law to address visual clutter and safety concerns. And Part 7, vehicles in public places. Behaviour involving vehicles hooning clause has been included in the local law. A note has also been added to reference that this clause supports Victoria Police and that Council is not the lead agency for this provision. If endorsed at tonight's meeting, the local law will be published in the Victorian Government Gazette and enacted on the 2nd of March 2026. Following endorsement, there are several actions required to transition to the new local law. Officers will make available the Your Guide to the Casey Community Local Law document that is attached to tonight's report. This simplified, user-friendly version of the local law will accompany the local law on Council's website. It seeks to make the new local law clearer and easier for the public to understand. Implementation of a community education campaign will also occur, including animated video explainers for social media and websites, as well as a multilingual campaign. System and tools to improve councillor officer support will be developed, as well as implementing ongoing governance and feedback loops to embed continuous improvement and strategic oversight of the Local Law 2025. Officers feel that the Local Law 2025 reflects extensive community input, meets legislative compliance and Council's commitment to good governance. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Casey. Councillors, do we have any questions for the officer? No questions? All right, we've got a recommendation on the screen. Have we got a mover and seconder? Councillor Ambros and Councillor Taylor seconding. Anyone speaking against the motion? No one against. We'll now open to debate. Councillor Ambros, would you like to speak to the motion?
Through you, Mayor, yes I would. The Casey Committee Local Law Review and Adoption. This final version truly reflects the voices of our community. Thanks for their time, effort and willingness to engage, we now have a stronger, more balanced proposal before us. When the Casey Community Local Law 2023 was adopted with 0 submissions during a period of council vacancy, creating a gap in community representation, today's decision reflects a final step forward for Casey, ensuring community voices are heard and incorporated. I would like to thank Councillor Shane Taylor for seconding and also tonight again for seconding this. On the 18th of March, all our councillors anonymously adopted the resolution to review the 2023 local laws. And the resolution included comprehensive review of the Casey local laws, suspension of the fees of private land use applications, detailed timetable and reviewing ensuring broader community, scope covering appropriateness and scope of the law, fees and charges, benchmarking against other councils and legal compliances, guidelines for application and enforcement balance between property rights and community. So a bit of background and a timetable. So March 2025, a review initiated, permit fee suspended. April 2025, scope and engagement plan approved. August 2025, draft law exhibited, public submissions invited, and October 2025, 74 submissions noted in an informal final law. I really want to thank the community. It's documented in today's report that 1,095 survey responses were received, 140 pop-up interactions, 4 workshops, 400 plus door knocks, 12 pop-up sessions across, including my ward, which was in Marco's IGA on the 7th of May, and when I spoke to residents who actually incorporated and provided their feedback. There is a lot of key changes which were highlighted by Chloe, so I thank you for highlighting them previously. But I do want to reiterate that this is a wonderful opportunity to see that we can take the time to use our voices to provide feedback, to make sure that when we do find things that aren't in the best interest, that we do use our councillors to understand what's needed, but in a respectful way. And I think the reflection of having 0 submissions back for the 2023 one was a step that we don't want to see repeated again in the future. We have just demonstrated how significant it is to show our voices are needed and heard, and the officers went to heavy work and provided a beautiful, I like to call it, local community law of 2025. An important date, which is going to be the 2nd of March 2026, where we will be formally revoking the local Casey Community Local Law 2023, and then the Casey Community Local Law 2025 will be published in the Victorian Government Gazette. I just also want to just close off to saying, sorry, can I have an extension of time, Mr Mayor?
Yes, granted.
The adoption of the Local Law 2025 is not just a regulatory update, it is a commitment to listening, engaging and acting in the best interests of Casey community. That's all, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ambros. Councillor Taylor, would you like to speak to the motion?
Through you, Mayor. This has been a long journey. Reaching this point with community local law is a major achievement for our community. More than 1,000 residents took part, which has previously been said. People filled out surveys, they came to the pop-up sessions and workshops, they wrote submissions and presented some of those submissions here. They told us how these laws should work in real life and not just on paper. Many of the most difficult issues have been changed, they have been clarified, or in some cases wound back. The community made it clear that what went too far and what felt fair. What we have done now has been built with the community at every step. Not everyone will agree with every clause, but the final local law 2025 document reflects local expectations about property rights, amenity and common sense enforcement. As a councillor, this is the type of community process we should encourage in Casey. It is worth acknowledging and celebrating. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion, councillors? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. There's 3 specific points I would like to hone in on. The first one is about the Hoon laws, which really reflect the importance of public safety in our council plan. This inclusion reinforces council's commitment to working with our local police force in a positive and strong way. It also enhances transparency. It makes it clear that the role of council is to assist enforcement efforts and support Vic Police in addressing dangerous and disruptive driving behaviour, not to be the main enforcers. I welcome that transparency. I also welcome the compassion that's been shown in extending the time you can have a temporary dwelling in play up to 2 months, and whether that's in providing for family members or friends experiencing crises, alleviating temporary homelessness, or giving support to the household. This new time period can be used for residential purposes without a permit, providing a bit more breathing space for residents. And thirdly, and this was a very important factor to me when we were looking at the laws, is the improvement in communication. The community version of the local laws supports this through improved readability and accessibility, including expanded definitions, colour coding and explanatory notes. It's easy to update and adjust to feedback without needing to undergo another extensive process. and its commitment to providing ongoing governance and feedback loops to provide opportunities for continuous improvement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other councillors? Councillor Pereira.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is such an important local law, and I think it deserves a bit of talking to it. So we had 74 formal submissions, which is really fantastic compared to 0 before. So thank you to everybody who took the time to do that, and also to everybody who came out to all the hubs, and thank you to the councillors as well, who did go out and meet the community. I think a lot of the community were appreciative of that, and actually having our councillors back. Several key clauses were improved for clarity, consistency and fairness. The new 24-hour bin rule is interesting. So this is for amenity, and a lot of this is more now towards amenity-based, which is a better way of looking at local laws rather than just punitive. I would hope that there's some community spirit with neighbours, so if they do see bins out, you know, you might want to just check and see that, you know, their neighbours are okay, maybe take it in for them. Helping out is kind of nice. I know some of my neighbours in my street do that. The fire safety clause relating to chimney emissions now uses the clearer term nuisance, aligning with EPA standards. There's a little typo on page 18. It should say ash. Thank you. So we've also refined the rules relating to variable message signs, aerosol paint containers, and improved numerous definitions, as mentioned, land, public place and hoon event, all based on legal advice and community feedback. So this local law is going to replace the 2023 version, I hope with a much better version. It also has to be aligned with the Local Government Act 2020, which it obviously does. It modernises our approach, strengthens amenity protections and offers clearer expectations for both residents and for officers. It also introduces a new building and works code of practice to address unsafe building practices and supports consistent and fair decision making. So I'm happy to say tonight's adoption would be a careful result of careful listening and being responsive to our residents. I commend the huge effort that has brought us to this point from both residents, officers and the councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. Any other councillors to speak to the motion? Councillor Crather.
Through you, Mayor, I'd like to highlight the great community outcomes, especially for my ward in Southern Casey, around the shipping containers, recreational vehicles, and also the removal of permits for vehicle repairs. This is the biggest issue our councillor group has faced so far, and it shows me the process does work. Maybe not as quickly as the community would like, especially for those who are calling for councillors to fix this problem in January, but it has shown me the process of consultation, drafting and reviewing can produce a great outcome in the end. So I support the adoption of the local laws.
Thank you, Councillor Crowther. Any other councillors? Councillor Eaves.
Thank you, Mayor. As mentioned previously, this revokes the previous Casey Community Local Laws of 2023, which caused great consternation within our community. There was significant consultation within our community to develop these new laws and subsequent consultation to ascertain community approval for these new laws. This does not mean that everybody agrees with them, but it should be remembered that a majority of residents do agree with them. It should also be remembered that Council still does not proactively enforce these laws. It will again rely on information given by fellow residents whose safety or quiet enjoyment of their property is repeatedly disrupted by prohibitive behaviours. If no neighbours are upset, they don't have to report and nothing will happen. Reports of antisocial behaviours can still be made directly to Council via letter, email, phone or via Snap, Send and Solve. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Eaves. Any other councillors? No other councillors? I might make a brief contribution. It's obviously been a big year of consultation on this matter, and I think we were all taken aback at the start of our term by the concerns that were raised and the local laws from 2023. But I think this has been a very thorough process, and I hope it shows the importance that we place as a council on consultation and listening to the community. I think a few councillors have reflected on it, but what started as one issue that a few residents found, we actually saw there was a lot more to it in the local laws, and that's why we did the thorough full review. we could have, tried to change or tweak things, but I think this has been a process that's been very worthwhile, taken a little bit longer than maybe some of us had hoped, but the end outcome has been really positive. I think the fact that through the second round of consultation we made some further changes shows that we've really listened, and I'm really delighted to support this report, and I look forward to the new year when we can enact this new local law. On that note, if there's no other speakers, I might put this to a vote. All those councillors in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you, councillors. That's passed unanimously. Thank you. All right, we'll now move to item 4.2, which is our quarterly community report for the period July to September 2025, which is quarter one of this financial year. And to introduce the report, we've got Ms Marion Grigg, the Manager of Strategy, Innovation and Transformation.
Good evening, councillors. So this quarterly community report provides transparent reporting to the Casey community on council's performance in delivering its commitments. The report I'm presenting tonight represents the first report of progress made against the new council plan 2025 to 2029, as well as the 2025-26 annual action plan and budget that were endorsed by council in June. The 2025-26 annual action plan consists of 63 actions planned for completion within the financial year. At the end of quarter one, all 63 actions are in progress and are tracking to plan. In conjunction with action updates, the report also provides an update on the strategic indicators used to track progress towards council's long-term strategic outcomes. Of the total 40 indicators, 26 are currently progressing as expected, 11 are currently tracking behind, and 3 did not have data available for this quarter and will most likely be reported on in the next community report. The report also highlights the 18 important community engagements that were undertaken over the last quarter, with the most notable of these being during August and September, when we delivered round 2 of the community engagement on the community local law. During the quarter, the Capital Works program also progressed well. The Capital Works program features for 25-26 260 projects and an investment of $149 million. The Capital Works program expenditure for quarter one was $14 million, with a number of significant projects delivered. Finally, the report provides an overview of council's financial performance against the adopted budget. The quarterly financials reported show a surplus of $251.8 million, which is $10.9 million favourable to budget. It also shows that 2 new contracts over $5 million were awarded during the quarter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Grigg. Councillors, do we have any questions for the officer? No questions. We have a recommendation on the screen. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Dazon moving. Any seconder? Councillor Taylor seconding. Anyone speaking against the motion? No. Councillor Dazon, would you like to speak to the motion? Thank you. No.
Through you, Mayor, reviewing the quarterly community report, a few things stood out to me. First, on connectivity. Since being elected, I've been strongly advocating for better mobile coverage in Clyde and Clyde North, where residents tell me they sometimes can't even contact 000. I'm very pleased that Council's advocacy has led to stronger mobile connectivity provisions being included in the precinct structure plans for Caseyfield South and others. This means that new communities will finally have reliable coverage from day one. Second, I'm pleased with the number of community engagements this quarter, including, as just discussed, the consultations on the local laws. It is important that we continue to listen to our residents and ensure their views are reflected in our work. Lastly, and definitely not the least, the Bellata Road Family and Community Centre. I'm excited to welcome this major addition to my ward. I've visited the site a few times and spoken with residents who are really looking forward to its opening in October of 2026. With new kindergarten rooms, maternal and child health spaces, multi-purpose community rooms, and high-quality outdoor areas, this centre will significantly improve access to vital services to the residents of Clyde, Clyde North, and surrounding areas. On that end, I would be very pleased to support this report. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dazon. And as seconder, who was Councillor Taylor? Would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, through you, Mayor. This quarterly community report shows that the first 3 months of the new council plan, we were not only ahead of budget, we were also investing in things residents feel in their daily lives. This includes school holiday programs, it includes cultural events and inclusive sports. These programs support the families, young people and our social connection in our communities. From a community point of view, the main story is the amount of work happening in our local areas. Council is delivering a $149 million capital works program, and this is huge. This covers about 260 projects. The projects include upgrades to many recreation reserves, pools, community centres and pavilions. The report also shows progress on livability and resilience actions. This includes planting more trees, it includes strengthening wildlife corridors, it includes upgrades to stormwater assets. These actions respond to what residents have told us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Walter.
Through your Mayor, there are two things in this report that I would like to highlight. One being one of our strategic indicators is the increased expenditure in capital works. And as far as my ward, over $10 million is being invested. And that goes to the Springleaf Recreation Reserve, as well as the Family and Community Center that is going to be adjacent to that, as well as Hardy's Road Family and Community Center. And also, for my second point, I would like to highlight that as a council, we are working collaboratively with local sporting groups to develop opportunities for LGBT youth and others to be more inclusive in the sporting arenas, because every child deserves the chance to play sport and excel. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walter. Any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Crowther.
Through you, Mayor, I'd like to highlight the Council developed a food relief advocacy campaign last quarter, helping to build partnerships across our emergency food providers to attract more funding and to support our agencies that support our vulnerable community members. As we head into the challenging Christmas season, we'd like to thank all of our amazing food relief agencies and volunteers who give so much to support our Casey community. I'd also like to note the lower than expected completion rate of the Capital Works program, and the councillor group has asked for more regular and detailed reporting of this so we can understand the issues, work to improve completion rates and continue to deliver great infrastructure for our community.
Thank you, Councillor Crowther. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. I have two specific points to highlight. The first is community engagement into the future of youth services. So as we're undergoing the Youth Services Review, which is aimed at improving services for all youth, including those in the 18 to 25 age bracket, it's heartening to see over 1,000 contributions from young people across Casey. And they've specifically discussed accessible sport, which speaks to Councillor Anthony Walter's point, concerns about safety and social pressures, and their desire for inclusion and their need for purpose-driven spaces that support mental well-being and creative expression. And secondly, I was also very excited, probably overly excited, to see progress in the development of our social impact measurement tool. And this is a way to move beyond the financial reporting and impact of decisions, as important and crucial as that is, but to encompass the impact of influence on other domains, including mental health, social justice and the environment. It gives us a deeper understanding and a different way to weigh up risks and benefits when we come to decision making. So looking forward to monitoring the progress of that over the next few quarterly updates. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other councillors? Councillor Pereira.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to just highlight the 16 days of activism, which I think is an excellent initiative to fight, violence. And Casey says no to violence, and this is such a huge issue for our community. And I want to read a little bit because I think it's very important. The campaign is focused on raising broad community awareness through visible messaging across Casey, including banners, posters and themed lighting at community facilities and public spaces, a short video displayed on the big screen, and a unified campaign message. Casey says no to violence. There are key partnerships that have been established with Victoria Police and Respect Victoria to amplify messaging around men's mental health, gender equality, safety and respect. And in addition, staff and volunteer disclosure trainings have been delivered, with additional sessions for council officers scheduled, happen in October. This is such a huge issue, like I said. It's something that's, despite our many actions, it is still a growing problem. And I hope that we can implement even more actions. This is a starting point really for us. So congratulations to the officers. It's going really well so far. We can do a lot more though, I think. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. Councillor Ambros.
Through you, Mayor, I wanted to also highlight 3 points, and one particular which Councillor Pereira did just highlight, which is fantastic. So I just wanted to also emphasise that with that messaging for the 16 days activism, which wasn't highlighted in there, but it also reflects on one of our target points where we are in progress, which is great, which is the messaging is Casey says no to family violence, but in particular our partnership with Victoria Police and Respect Victoria, and we're raising awareness, promoting gender equality and encouraging respectful relationships. Another one that I wanted to highlight was I'm pleased to see the community engagement. In my previous role as a former Deputy Mayor, that was one thing that I really wanted to emphasise was community engagement. With 18 community engagement activities were undertaken this quarter, including consultations on local law, and as we can see tonight, we've adopted the new one, which is fantastic to see. There was in particular other ones with the youth services and infrastructure, and these decisions are informed by real community voices. Another point I wanted to highlight is the increase of participation of women and girls sports. I've always been a strong advocate for women in sport, and it's great to see that we're on track for this. We're having 1,331 women participated in the Casey Girls CAM program. I did speak to that to a lot of members, and it's nice to see that as a council we're leading and supporting the women in sport, and in particular I was excited to be able to deliver the commitment funding of $10.68 million for the Women Excellency in Casey Field. So we're doing amazing things at Casey. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ambros. Any other councillors? Councillor Perry.
It's a quick one. And it's, nothing too major, but it's just, that when we were first elected to council, a lot of people made a note that there was, not a lot of diversity, like cultural diversity on the council group. And I just wanted to make a note that the one thing that I noticed was off track was the participation in surveys and community consultation with culturally diverse and minority groups, and just something that maybe we can monitor for next quarter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Any other councillors? No further contributions? All right, we've got the motion on the screen. On that note, we'll now put this to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you, councillors. That's carried unanimously. Excellent. We'll now move on to item 4.3, which is the appointment of our Audit and Risk Independent Committee members. And we have Ms Chloe Casey again, Manager of Communications and Corporate Governance, to introduce this report. Ms Casey.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Tonight I'm presenting a report recommending the appointment of 2 independent members to the City of Casey Audit and Risk Committee for a 3-year term ending on the 31st of December 2028. The Audit and Risk Committee is essential for Council's governance, providing independent oversight of financial reporting, risk management and internal controls. We would like to thank 2 of our current independent members, Mr Ernest Starbeck and Ms Carol Pagan, whose terms conclude on the 31st of December 2025, for their commitment to the committee throughout their terms. After a competitive recruitment process, 2 candidates are recommended to be appointed to the committee, Mr Roger Chow and Mr Mick Jench. Following Council's endorsement, the new committee member appointments will be confirmed in writing and an induction program will be scheduled before their first committee meeting in March of 2026. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Casey. Councillors, any questions for the officer? No questions? All right, we've got a motion on the screen. Do we have a mover and seconder? Councillor Reeves moving, Councillor Pereira seconding. Is there anyone speaking against the motion? No? All right, we'll now to the mover. Councillor Reeves, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. The Audit and Risk Committee is a must for good governance in any large business, and Casey is a large business. This committee is tasked with addressing risk and is done through audits and policies. This committee must include independent members to help ensure risks such as internal frauds are appropriately identified and actions taken to safeguard Casey's assets. Our committee includes 3 independent non-executive members who have been highly qualified and hold relevant experience, one of whom is our chairperson, John. We now see 2 of the independent members stepping aside, and I'd like to thank Carol Pagan and Ernest Stabuch for their service and for the expertise they have brought to the committee, and welcome Roger and Mick, both of whom bring a wealth of diverse experience and qualifications. Our Risk and Audit Committee will be well served by their inclusion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Councillor Pereira, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, the Audit and Risk Committee plays a vital role in strengthening governance, transparency and community confidence. Tonight we consider the appointment of 2 highly qualified external members. Mr Roger Chow has extensive experience in governance, audit, compliance, risk management and financial oversight, as well as strategic advisory roles in health, transport and environmental planning in government departments. Mr Mick Jansen has over 30 years of senior local government experience across a number of councils involving financial management, governance, procurement, audit and risk and strategic financial planning. Both meet the requirements of the Local Government Act for having the necessary expertise in financial management and risk and also public sector experience. I'm pleased to support the recommendations of these 2 highly credentialed candidates. And I also want to thank Carol and Ernst too, because they were wonderful members to work with as well. So thank you for all of their contributions as well. So by supporting the 2 new appointments, we are endorsing best practice governance and ensuring that Casey's audit and risk oversight is guided by the highest professional standards. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No further speakers. We've heard from our 2 members of our Audit and Risk Committee, reappointed again last month, so thank you to Councillor Reeves and Councillor Pereira. With no further speakers, I'll put this to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you, councillors. That's passed unanimously. And we congratulate Roger and Mick on their appointment. We'll now move on to item 4.4, which is the wind-up of Casey Cardinia Library Corporation. And to introduce that report, we have Miss Emily Clark, the Manager of Creative Communities. Miss Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, councillors. This paper seeks council endorsement to commence the wind-up of the Casey Cardinia Library Corporation as required under the Local Government Act 2020 and to appoint a liquidator. This report requests council's endorsement to commence the wind-up of the Casey Cardinia Library Corporation. This report is quite procedural in nature and is in line with all legislative requirements to ensure the wind-up can progress and be legally valid. Casey Cardinia Library Corporation, trading more recently as Connected Libraries, has been providing library services on council's behalf since 1996. As foreshadowed in a report presented at the May Council meeting, the Local Government Act requires all library corporations to wind up and transition to a new entity type, a beneficial enterprise, by 2030. On 1 July of this year, all library operations, including staff and assets, were transferred from Casey Cardinia Library Corporation to a new beneficial enterprise, which is Connected Libraries Limited. Now that Connected Libraries Limited is fully operational, officers are seeking the endorsement of council as the sole member of Casey Cardinia Library Corporation to appoint a liquidator to manage the Casey Cardinia Library Corporation's wind-up. This, alongside the specific wording in the council report recommendations, is a requirement under the Corporations Act. This step is low risk and is based on advice from an experienced liquidator. Effectively, by endorsing the recommendations, Council will give the proposed liquidator control of the entity and authority to commence the wind-up. The report includes a recommendation to appoint Gary Fetz of Rogers Reedy as liquidator based on his expertise and previous experience. It is anticipated that the wind-up will take between 6 to 12 months. In the meantime, Connected Libraries Limited will continue to provide library services on Council's behalf under the trading name of Connected Libraries. The customer experience and operations of the new entity will not be impacted by the wind-up. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Clark. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Dowling, a comment? Yes.
Just before the questions through you, Mayor, I just want to declare that I'm on the board of Connected Libraries. It's no personal advantage to me at all and therefore not considered a conflict of interest.
Thank you, Councillor Dowling. That's noted. Councillors, any questions for Ms Clark? No questions. All right, councillors, do we have a motion on the screen and in the agenda papers? Do we have a mover and a seconder? Mover, Councillor Dazon, and seconder, Councillor Dowling. Councillor, anyone speaking against the motion? No one against. Councillor Dazon, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, please. Through you, Mayor. Although winding up entities isn't my specific area of legal practice, I have been involved in similar legal processes. I've reviewed the recommendations carefully and am satisfied that the wording meets the requirements under the Corporations Act. As per the Council report, Connected Libraries Limited is now fully operational, with all staff and services transferred and no impact on the community. Given the successful transition, I consider it appropriate, as required under the Local Government Act, that the Casey Cardinia Library Corporation now be wound up. I think that it's also important to note that this has no effect on the ongoing operations of Connected Libraries. For these reasons, I support the endorsement of the recommendations in this agenda item. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dazon. Councillor Dowling, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, through you, Mayor, just briefly. It's an exciting time for Connected Libraries. About 100,000 members we have at the moment, and this transition is in no way for the council to make revenue or more money out of it. It is for the people, and it is growing, and I would encourage everyone to get along to the library and have a look and have a discussion. There's a lot of things to do. The demographic that does visit the library is from, say, 6 years old right up to 75, 80 years old, and everything in between. It's a fantastic resource. It has some rooms available for meetings if you'd like to book them out in advance. But, yeah, it's going very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dowling. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? No? We might put this to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you, councillors. Passed unanimously. We'll now move on to item 4.5, which is the public art policy, and we have Ms Clark again to introduce this report. Ms Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. This paper seeks to endorse the public art policy and revoke the arts acquisition policy. The City of Casey has a long-standing commitment to enriching public spaces and fostering community identity through public art. Over the past 2 decades, the municipality has commissioned more than 200 works guided by the arts acquisition policy. However, as Council's strategic direction has evolved, particularly with a shift towards temporary exhibitions and changing community needs, the existing policy no longer aligns with current priorities or operational realities, and as such, it is requested to be revoked. In response, a new public art policy has been developed to ensure the continued delivery of high-quality, sustainable public art for the Casey community. This policy raises the threshold for the Percent for Art scheme to projects over $10 million, allowing for fewer but more robust and impactful works. The new policy places strong emphasis on diversity, equity and child safety, ensuring that public art in Casey celebrates the rich tapestries of cultures, identities and stories within the community. By endorsing this policy, Council will support a vibrant, inclusive public art program that enhances civic pride, promotes wellbeing and delivers lasting value for residents and visitors alike. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Clark. Any questions for the officer councillors? No questions? We've got a motion on the screen. Have we got a mover and seconder for this motion? Councillor Perry moving and seconding Councillor Ross. Anyone speaking against the motion? No. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Perry, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yep, through you, Mayor. On the surface, and when I first looked at this policy change, it looked like we were receiving less artwork from developments and investment in Casey for residents, but what it should result in is higher value, better quality pieces of art that require less maintenance or less maintenance work from council, and they should last longer as well. So I guess the hope is this initiative will create a beautiful network of artwork across our municipality, for residents and visitors, I suppose.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Perry. Councillor Ross, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. So public art is a powerful way to connect community, challenge thinking and encourage deeper conversations. I too was, first glance, concerned that this change to the policy would reflect a reduction in our commitment to public art. However, after a number of conversations with council officers about this, I've been reassured the intention is not to reduce expenditure on new public art, but to reduce maintenance cost and resources. Unfortunately, it acknowledges the reality of vandalism, in particular to smaller pieces of public art that are more vulnerable to public defacing and destruction. So I'm crossing fingers that this is going to be, not just crossing fingers, I do believe this will provide us with more robust pieces. But one of the main changes to this policy is the move away from the original intention set by previous councillors to create a permanent art collection at the Bunjil Place Art Gallery. There is no mention of the Bunjil Place Art Collection in the new policy. It's nestled near the Bunjil Library and it's one of the hidden gems in my ward, and I delight in being the ambassador and showing it off to people. If you haven't seen it, please go and check it out, it's free. The current program of a varied and responsive art collection would not be possible if a permanent art collection had been pursued. This change of policy acknowledges the reality that the gallery is currently operating under. Given the success of the range of collections displayed, I was surprised that the original intent was for a permanent collection in the art gallery itself. I don't think that ratepayers would support the use of their money, our money, on such a permanent public art collection. It would necessitate a considerable outlay, not just on acquisition, but on additional storage and insurance. I had a conversation with someone who's on the board of other small galleries who do have permanent collections, and when I showed them Bunjil and explains its rotating nature and how much it's connected with community engagement and sideways programming, they expressed their support and were quite envious of what we actually have here in Casey. We will continue to have partnerships with established and respected partners such as the National Gallery of Victoria. The recent successful Floribunda collection that was presented at Bunjil is possible under our current focus, and I look forward to future collaborations with other galleries as well as with the community on this programming. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillors, anyone else like to speak to the motion? No further speakers? I might make a short contribution. I think Councillor Ross was quite eloquent in the way that she spoke about the previous council's desire to have a private art collection, but I don't think, when I came into council, I wasn't expecting that this would be a policy of a suburban council to use ratepayers' money potentially to purchase and retain art. And I was quite taken aback when I found this out. So I'm very supportive of this change. I think what we do really well at Bunjil Place as a regional art gallery is bringing in works and partnering with the National Gallery and the Victorian Gallery to bring in things to our community that residents can go and view. And having a permanent collection doesn't really provide value or wouldn't provide value and would be quite costly. And I think it's a credit to the team here at Bunjil how with the budget we have, what they're able to bring in. We saw Floribunda this year, fantastic display. So I'm very supportive of what we do, and I don't think there's any need for a permanent collection. So I'm definitely in favour of this new policy. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to the motion? No? We'll now put this to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. That's passed unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We will now move to item 4.6, which is the Wilson Botanic proposed overflow car park. And again, we have Miss Emily Clark, to introduce the report.
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to update Council on the findings of community engagement activity undertaken on the proposed overflow car park at Wilson Botanic Park, access via Kramer Drive. This report details community engagement on the proposed overflow car park. This was a project proposed for delivery in 2025-26 and would provide up to 100 car parking spaces. Following exhibition of the annual draft budget 25-26, inclusive of the draft capital works program, Council received several written and verbal submissions from community members concerned that the proposed project had been included for delivery without prior consultation. Council elected to revise the draft budget, removing the proposed project and committing to engage with the community for the purpose of sharing relevant planning activity and gauging feedback. Feedback from the community collected over a 4-week period indicated that 53% of respondents opposed progression of the overflow car park access via Kramer Drive. The engagement report is attached to this report. Key points to note regarding the community engagement process are that feedback on the project proposal was gathered through online and hard copy surveys and written submissions. There were 334 individual pieces of feedback, 330 surveys and 4 written submissions. As I said before, 53% of respondents opposed progression of the overflow car park, while 41% of respondents were in favour of the proposed car park, noting the requirement for additional car parking to meet the undersupply, and 6% of respondents were unsure if the proposed car park should proceed. The Council report recommends that the current proposal is not progressed and that planning for a comprehensive review of the existing Wilson Botanic Park Master Plan in 26-27 is considered. This would be pending funding allocation in the 26-27 budget process. The Master Plan review would plan for a broad range of visitor amenity needs into the future, including the undersupply of visitor car parking. In addition, Council will continue to advocate to the Department of Transport and Planning for installation of traffic lights at the Wilson Botanic Park and Princess Highway intersection. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Clark. Councillors, do we have any questions for the officer? No questions. We have a recommendation on the screen. Councillors, do we have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation? Councillor Perry, moving. Any seconder? Councillor Rowe, seconding. Is anyone speaking against the motion, or Councillor Ross?
I'm not speaking against the motion. I'm just flagging that if this motion is lost, I'm foreshadowing an alternative recommendation in that the originally proposed overflow car park proceeds. This is based on recognising significant current community demand over the last 5 years, that this site has been identified in the master plan, and that it was originally supported by almost half of the broader community in the original consultation process.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. That's been flagged. We've now got a mover and a seconder. So we will go to the mover. Councillor Perry, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, through you, Mayor. So thanks to Council for listening to our community. It's become clear we need to put more thought into how we manage Wilson Botanic Park, like now, also in the future, but it's the part of my ward that I get the most contact about. So we need a clear plan and to set guidelines around how the park is used from this point forward. And as we can see in the motion, this can be addressed by the master plan, building a master plan for the park. So that will give us a chance to plan out and build the park facilities that will serve our community's needs into the future. It might find that we have more options than we realise at the moment, and we can build a better park and better access in the future. We just need to do it properly. So through the recent consultation process, the local community made it clear that they do not want an ad hoc car park placed at the end of their suburban street or a suburban street as the solution to the problem. I think there's a general feeling that they didn't create the problem and that it's probably not the greatest solution. They've given us a petition, which I'll table later in this meeting, giving us over 100 signatures. They've fronted up to council in person. They set up here and pled their case of why they didn't want it included in our council plan back in, I think it was March or April. And they put together over 30 submissions to that plan in the budget. And they have given us valid reasons for not moving forward with the Kramer Drive car park at this stage. I'll just list a couple of them. You might want to extend my time. I'm probably going to go over.
Got a minute? That's all right, yep.
So, yeah, the few of the things that have come up quite a bit. There's a dangerous exit out of Kramer Drive onto Harkaway Road. I think anyone who's in the north of Casey knows Harkaway Road leading onto Lyle Road pretty well. In the mornings and the evenings, or any time of the day, really, even on the weekends. The limited soil bearing capacity of the site, I can't speak to that, but that's what's come through. The limited buffer zone from the former quarry. They've given a list of other viable options for the car park. I'm not going to go into that. I feel like the master plan will address that properly. And some residents have fears of the proposed car park expanding in the future, and despite its location at the end of a suburban drive, becoming a permanent car park or a sole car park while any upgrades to the park are made. And yeah, there's a few others, but they're the ones that really stood out to me. So I think the community has spoken, and we probably need to listen to what the residents are saying. So I do agree with the officer recommendation. We should ditch the ad hoc car park and do the master plan as it says on the recommendation, and then continue to lobby VicGov to build a crossing over the Old Princes Highway to improve safety. I mean, the current state government, it feels like they could easily fix this problem. So yeah, if we can make sure they do, that would be great. And yeah, we'll make a Casey a priority for them, I suppose. So yeah, what I'm hearing is we don't want an ad hoc car park in one of the most important and beautiful parks we have in the north of Casey. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Councillor Rowe, a seconder. Would you like to speak to the motion? No? No speaking to the motion. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion or against the motion? No? All right. We'll now... Oh, Councillor Pereira, yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a very difficult thing to think about. We understand very well. I thank you, Councillor, for standing up for your residents, and we all understand the passion and the problems and how they see it. The way I'm looking at it, though, this is a very, very widely used. People all across Casey use this, and I have had trouble finding parking there on numerous occasions. And I've had other people complain to me that they can't find parking when they go there. They've had to change plans. They've planned to meet people there. They've had to change their plans. Sooner or later, we're going to need this car park, and that's just a fact. I think I don't want to defer it. I think it's better that we provide a car park to get some of those cars off the street and still continue on with the master plan anyway, because that's got to be done anyway. That's just how I'm feeling about this.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? No? Councillor Perry, would you like to have a final say before we put it to a vote? Right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry. Yeah, if it doesn't get up, I've got more to say later, but I really think the master plan needs to be done first. This is a more important park than what you realise. There's more, like we can advocate to Cardinia to build parks or Dandenong to build parks. This is a really important park for the city of Casey and for the Greater Melbourne. There's not that many botanical parks in Metro Melbourne at all, and we need to look after it properly. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. We'll now put the motion as on the screen to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Those against? Thank you, councillors. I'll note that I'll have to please raise your hands again. Sorry, we have to go through the, so those for was Councillor Perry, and those against, Councillor Dowling, Councillor Ross, Councillor Rowe, Councillor Crowther, Councillor Walter, Councillor Cooman, Councillor Ambrose, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Eves, Councillor Pereira and Councillor Dazon. Thank you, councillors. I declare that motion lost. Noting, Councillor Ross, you've foreshadowed an alternative motion. Officers, do we have that alternative motion to put on the screen? And then, is that there? So we have another motion that Councillor Ross has foreshadowed. Do we have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Dowling? Yep. So we've got moving Councillor Ross, seconding Councillor Dowling. Anyone speaking against the motion? Yes. Councillor Perry. Councillor Ross, as the mover, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. As you can see, the motion is up there. The 3 points remain basically unchanged. We still note the community feedback. There is still a plan for a comprehensive review of the existing Wilson Botanic Park Master Plan in 2026-27, and we're certainly continuing to advocate to the Department of Transport and Planning for installation of traffic lights at the Wilson Botanic Park Princess Highway intersection. The changes to point number 2, endorse progression of the Wilson Botanic Park overflow car park, access via Kramer Drive, including a budget allocation of $310,000 to align with the draft 25-26 budget. So based on the evidence and balancing of risks versus benefits, I believe that the originally identified overflow car park should be pursued so that the maximum number of Casey residents can enjoy the benefits of this wonderful community asset, which it is. I agree, it is a unique asset that we have. There is a major parking issue at Wilson Botanic Park. This asset is a bit of a victim of its own success. It's been accessed by almost 1 million people in 2025. This is an unprecedented increase in visitation rates over 5 previous years, up from 500,000 in 2020. We want people to be able to access it with as minimal stress as possible. Personally, I usually choose not to attend any sort of event there because I know parking is going to be a headache. The Master Plan 2022 notes the need for an additional satellite car parking in the long term. This is not an ad hoc idea on the run. It has been identified in the plan, and it was the preferred option in the original report councillors brought to council earlier this year. This preference was based on topography of possible alternative sites and associated costs. After touring all of the potential sites of the overflow car park at Wilson Botanic Park, reading the reports and talking to officers, I was satisfied that the overflow car park identified was the best possible solution. Therefore, there is no benefit in waiting to deliver this when we have an immediate need for it. I do acknowledge local residents' ambivalence or opposition to this project. If it was me, I'd probably feel the same, but we need to consider the benefit of the whole Casey community. I acknowledge that increased traffic flow, can I have more time please, Mr Mayor?
Yes, granted. Councillor Ross.
Increased traffic flow through Kramer Drive and the surrounding feeder streets will change the character of the road. However, one of the aims of providing overflow parking is to remove inappropriate parking, not just along Princess Highway, but also in Kramer Drive and surrounds at peak periods, as well as reducing congestion of vehicles at the main gateway and entrance in and out of the highway, which in the absence of a controlled intersection presents a safety risk to patrons and other motorists. If the project does progress, all efforts will be taken to respect existing park character, including minimal removal of vegetation and a surface treatment that maximises green and avoids hard surfacing, as well as consulting with neighbouring residents on appropriate screening planting. The bringing forward of the overflow car park is in line with the master plan. It is responsive to the significant and unforeseen significant increase in visitation and is in the best interest of the wider Casey community. Viable options have been looked at. I agree that we need a clear plan, and this alternative recommendation still supports the bringing forward of the master plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Dowling as seconder, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, through you, Mayor. I think we need to remember it is an overflow car park, so it will only be engaged when there's special events or the need to have extra parking.
Thank you, Councillor Dowling. Would any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Pereira.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I am happier with this motion, to be honest. Once again, as emphasised, we have to decide what's in the best interest of the whole of the City of Casey. We want to include access for everyone, not just sort of the people that are sort of living conveniently close by. It might not be what some of the local people want, but unfortunately, we do have to think of everybody else. There's a lot of people that do come and use this park, and I think it's a fair way to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Reeves.
Thank you, Mayor. I too support this motion. I would, however, like to raise residents' concerns over their safety sharing the boundary fence with Wilson's Botanical Gardens. I believe this too should be studied, and perhaps a cyclone fence might help. I fully understand the growing public desire to visit this garden, as public visitations to the Cranbourne Royal Botanic Gardens has increased significantly, bringing much economic growth to the southern part of Casey. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Any other councillors wish to speak to this item? No other councillors. Councillor Perry, noting your opposition, did you want to speak?
Yeah, I think I should. I think that you're viewing the local residents in the wrong light, and I think that you need to, take a good hard look at yourselves and have a think about what you're actually bringing to council and what you're bringing to your local areas. So you're endorsing an ad hoc plan when we have the option of a master plan, and I understand you don't know the area, and that is fine, but I'm trying to give you some insight. I know Dowling's moved to the area post when the Woolworths was built, and the Berwick was a very different place back then, and I don't think that it's, I don't think that you're treating that township or that community in the way that it should be treated. So when we tell our residents we want to build an ad hoc, and it is an ad hoc car park, at the end of a quiet suburban street without a proper plan, it looks like we have a knee-jerk reaction. We don't have a plan as a council, and we're telling our residents that they don't matter to us. You're telling my residents that they don't matter to you. You're saying that their safety does not matter. Try to get into Kramer Drive or out of Kramer Drive onto Harkaway Road at peak hour and you'll know what I mean. You don't know the area. We created a problem by oversubscribing the park, and we're telling our residents that they have to deal with the consequences. If you want to, let's build more appropriate parking across Casey. Don't put all of the eggs in one basket and just say that we have to be able to access, this park at Berwick. It's just, it's our right. Let's build more parks. Let's build a beautiful one in Hampton Park or in Berwick South. And as I said earlier, we should be telling Cardinia and City of Dandenong residents, councils, to build nice parks. There doesn't only need to be one nice park in Melbourne, and you can laugh if you want. That's good. Residents don't want our ad hoc car park. They want a plan. Let's give them the master plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion before we put this to a vote? No other speakers? All right, councillors, we'll put the motion on the screen to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. I'll read it out now. Councillor Dazon, Councillor Pereira, Councillor Eves, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Ambrose, Councillor Cooman, Councillor Walter, Councillor Crowther, Councillor Rowe, Councillor Ross, Councillor Dowling. Thank you, councillors. All those against? Councillor Perry. Councillors, I declare that motion carried. Thank you. All right, councillors, we'll now move on to item 4.7, which is the 2025 Casey Activity Centre Audit and Improvement Plan, Stage 1, Minor Works. And to introduce that report, we've got Mr. Michael Barrett, the Manager of City Design and Construction. Mr. Barrett.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, councillors. I'm pleased to present this report this evening, the purpose of which is to seek Council's endorsement of the Activity Centre Investment Priority List and the 5-year Activity Centre Improvement Programme, which will guide strategic investment for and advocacy for council-managed activity centres. The City of Casey has completed Stage 1 of the Activity Centre Audit and Improvement Plan by engaging an external consultant assessing 17 council-managed centres to inform a prioritised 5-year investment programme. The programme directs targeted investment to enhance safety, accessibility, social resilience, economic vitality and environmental performance consistent with the Council Plan 2025-29 Strategic Directions and Outcomes. This process was initiated in response to growing recognition of the role of activity centres play in creating strong, safe and livable communities, a priority highlighted by councillors since early 2024. Centres were quantitatively assessed against 7 principles: activated, accessible, diverse, enjoyable, looked after, enticing and socially resilient. Proposed opportunities identified range from minor works such as seating, tree canopy improvement and wayfinding, to major improvements like landscaping and pedestrian safety and movement enhancements. Most centres scored in the medium range, which has informed the proposed investment priority list commencing this financial year. Progress will be reviewed every 2 years to ensure delivery remains aligned with community needs and council priorities. Endorsing the Activity Centre Investment Priority List positions Council to deliver high-performing, people-focused places that are socially vibrant, economically strong and environmentally resilient. This programme will strengthen community identity, support local business and ensure Casey's activity centres remain fit for purpose as the municipality grows. Projects and project budgets will be nominated as part of Council's Capital Works project nomination process for consideration and endorsement by councillors through the annual planning process each year. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Councillors, do we have any questions for the officer? No questions. We've now got a recommendation on the screen. Do we have a mover and seconder for the recommendation? Councillor Crowther moving, Councillor Walter as seconding. Is there anyone speaking against the motion? None against. All right. Councillor Crowther, as a mover, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to move the motion to endorse the Activity Centre Investment Priority List, which is a mouthful, supporting local businesses and improving the amenity of local shopping strips and activities centres has been a high priority of our councillor group. This audit assessed the current status of 17 council-owned activity centres to see what can be implemented to improve amenity, safety and their economic viability. The priority list for this financial year includes projects right across Casey, and I look forward to seeing the rejuvenation of many of our activity centres.
Thank you, Councillor Crowther. Councillor Walter is seconded. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Through you, Mayor, yes, I would. In this report, there is nothing in my ward, obviously, because everything in my ward is relatively new. But I'm happy to see that there is a wide breadth of wards that are in this, and that just brings our standard up equal throughout the whole municipality, which is very welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Walter. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Reeves.
Thank you, Mayor. Casey activity centres are council-maintained centres and often shopping strips. These strips encompass the values of our recent Live Local, Shop Local Christmas campaign. Many of these shops are takeaways, hairdressers and similar businesses. They rely on local shoppers. These upgrades are designed to encourage more community interaction and revitalising business growth within these areas. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. I also support the officer's recommendation for this item. It outlines an evidence-based way to improve our activity centres over several years. It aims to give some love to them through improving active transport links, climate-resistant and respite spaces, and pops of green and calm. To acknowledge the importance of these centres not just as economic and shopping places, but also as third spaces. And one of the benefits of a vibrant, safe and inviting community activity centre is the value it brings to the surrounding community, including encouraging connection. I was concerned to ensure that extra attention on a particular activity centre not take away from a thorough maintenance and activation schedule elsewhere. Therefore, I sought clarification with council officers, and they reassured me that endorsing this list of proposed initiatives does not stop councillors or community members from bringing forward other requests for their local area. It does not alter council's existing maintenance schedules or necessary minor capital works already budgeted and programmed. And I was pleased to see the Narre Warren Village, including Webb Street, listed in there. Webb Street is a vibrant and quirky activity centre with a diverse range of businesses and many little treasures. And I'll keep advocating for improvements and attention to the Narre Warren Village so that its identity and potential can be more fully developed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Ambrose.
Through you, Mayor, yes, I would. I'm in support of this report. While Calora Ward does not have a council-owned activity centre, I do recognise the significance of the two privately owned centres in my area. Endeavour Hill Shopping Centre, a major activity centre, and Heatherton Village Neighbourhood Activity Centre. Both centres are part of the Stage 2 of the Activity Centre Audit and Improvement Plan, and findings and recommendations were presented early next year, ensuring these centres receive the same strategic attention as council-owned facilities. So I welcome this.
Thank you, Councillor Ambrose. Any other councillors? Councillor Pereira.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would be remiss in not mentioning our dear old Hampton Park Shopping Centre, which we all know needs a lot of loving. It's not a lot of money, but I'm happy to see some investment being put into that area. It so really needs it, along with many areas of, Hallam and Dupton. These are, like Councillor Walter says, these are the older areas. They really need some loving. So I'm very happy for once to be able to say, yes, we're getting some injection of funding there. It's just so tired, like even just some flowers and we've talked about this, just getting something to make it more beautiful. We've got people that want to shop at other areas because they don't want to go there because they don't feel comfortable and happy shopping there. So we want to try and encourage that, attract them back to their local shops. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. Any other councillors to speak to the motion? I'll speak briefly. I just wanted to say, firstly, I'm really pleased that we've done this in a strategic way. I think when we came in as councillors, we identified public activity centres as a real focus for us. That's where community's built, and traders are really important, but it's those public spaces that we want to feel welcoming. So to see the officers go and do the work, to do a thorough review of all the centres, I think sets us up well for the next few years, where we can kind of go through the work according to the priorities and really look to improve some of those spaces. Some of them are large improvements, but I look at one, Doveton Avenue in my ward where I live, and there's one block in the middle of the shopping strip with overgrown grass that is just so poorly maintained. It's a real eyesore, and for a small spend we've identified it, and there'll be improvements just to make the look and feel of it much better, and I know that'll be really well received by residents and traders, and I think there's a lot of that across this report. So I very much endorse this, and we'll be voting in favour and looking forward to see some of the improvements in the years ahead. Thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak before we put this to a vote? No? We'll put this to a vote. The motion's on the screen. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you, councillors. Passed unanimously. Thank you, Mr Barrett. We'll now move on to item 4.8. We're nearly halfway through the agenda. This item is the removal of the allocation restrictions at Berwick Springs Recreation Reserve. And we have Mr James Doherty, Acting Manager of Active Communities, to present the report. Mr Doherty.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, councillors. The purpose of this report is for the removal of existing allocation restrictions at Berwick Springs Recreation Reserve to allow broader sporting use across both summer and winter seasons. These restrictions, unique to this reserve, limit winter use to junior AFL, and prohibiting Sunday cricket, which were originally implemented in 2005 and 2010. However, with the planned relocation of Berwick Springs Junior Football Club to a new facility, an opportunity has arisen to reallocate winter usage at the reserve. Community consultation has been undertaken and key stakeholders have been engaged to ensure their needs are considered in future planning. Removing these restrictions will enable more flexibility to allocate to other sports and age groups and address the high demand for Sunday cricket. Tonight, we are seeking councillors endorse the recommendation as written on the screen. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Doherty. Councillors, any questions for the officer? No questions, all right. We've got a recommendation on the screen. Do we have a mover, Councillor Taylor, and a seconder, Councillor Ambros? Anyone in opposition? No one opposed. Councillor Taylor, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, through you, Mayor. First of all, I'm pleased to say this is not about a name change, but the removal of an allocation of restrictions at Berwick Springs Recreation Reserve. I support the officer's report. This change will activate a very important community space, making it more accessible and available for everyone. This decision reflects what we have heard from the community, which will allow more flexible use of the reserve. By working closely with the Community Council is making sure the reserve can be enjoyed by more clubs, families and community groups. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Ambros, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would. Through you, ma'am. I have actively advocated for greater support and better use of community facilities and unlocking the full potential of Berwick Springs Recreation Reserve. Removing outdated restrictions also allows the reserve to be used by a wider range of sports and age groups, supporting increased participation and better use of public assets. As our community grows and evolves, it's vital that our public assets adapt to meeting changing needs. By removing these restrictions, we're making the reserve more accessible and more relevant to residents. This is a key step in understanding and responding to what our community truly needs: flexibility, opportunity, and the ability to participate in a variety of activities. Council has engaged with local clubs, residents, and stakeholders throughout this whole process, ensuring their voices have shaped the outcome. By working together, we're not only supporting increased participation, but also fostering a sense of ownership and pride in our shared spaces. This change is about maximising community use, supporting our community population, making sure our facilities reflect the needs and aspirations of people who use them, and I'm proud to advocate for this outcome and look forward to seeing even more residents benefit from Berwick Springs Recreation Reserve.
Thank you, Councillor Ambros. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? No further speakers. I'll put this to a vote. The motion's on the screen. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you, councillors. That's passed unanimously. Moving now to item 4.9, which is the Robert Booth Reserve Master Plan update. And to introduce this report, we've got Ms Kerry New, the Manager of City and Asset Planning. Ms New.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councillors. The Robert Booth Master Plan provides a 20-year vision for the reserve. It was first adopted in 2019, and there's been significant progress on delivering projects under this master plan. With some changing user priorities, officers have undertaken a review of the master plan. A key change in this version is the ability to provide a second netball court on site should usage continue to increase. There's also some other minor updates to reflect completed projects and a revision to the indicative timeline for project delivery. User groups and the Hampton Park Progress Association, who are the landowner, provided support for the updated plan. The wider community was consulted and one submission received in support of this amended plan. It's recommended that Council adopt the updated version of the plan as contained in the Council report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms New. Any questions for the officer, councillors? No questions. We've got a motion on the screen. Councillors, do we have a mover and a seconder? Mover, Councillor Pereira. Seconding, Councillor Dazon. Anyone speaking in opposition? No one in opposition. Councillor Pereira, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have a long history, from a long time, a quarter of a century actually, it goes a long time ago. I was the secretary of the tennis club for a short stint, and I was also an assistant tennis coach there. So tennis means a lot to me, sport means a lot to me. This is a really important reserve for Hampton Park, It's a much-loved community asset, and the master plan before us reflects the need to update it to make sure it meets the current growing needs of the community. The engagement for this updated master plan, that will be the vision for the next 20 years, was extensive and meaningful. 6 user groups were formally consulted: the Hampton Park Tennis Club, the Hampton Park Bowls Club, the Hampton Park Football and Netball Club, the Hampton Park Cricket Club, the Hampton Park Progress Association and the Hampton Park Community House. Their insights informed every stage of the design and prioritisation. Some of the projects have already been delivered or started at the reserve. If you drive past, you'll see the tennis club being extended. The courts have already been upgraded and some other works have been done. The Netball Club have been seeking a second court actually for many years, because a long time ago when I was there before, there was a tree that was in the way and was back and forth and it just didn't get done. So I'm very, very happy to see that there's now a new court being planned to be located behind the new AFL Cricket Netball Pavilion. So where the CFA training area was, that's going to be relocated. There will be also improvements to the spectator viewing area and oval lighting and a few other upgrades to driveways and stuff like that, and relocations to make the whole site more accessible. So the master plan ensures that Robert Ruth Reserve will continue to be a place where sport, community and inclusion thrive. It is a forward-looking plan that honours the history of the site while preparing the future for the future needs of Hampton Park. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. Councillor Dazon, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, please, Mayor. Just very briefly through you, I would also be very happy to support this updated master plan. The new netball court is definitely a great addition. It will give locals better facilities and help boost sport participation and social recreation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dazon. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? I will, before we put it to vote, I will speak to this one because this has been one I've been working with Councillor Pereira on for quite a long time. This is really the sporting centre of Hampton Park, and there's a lot of user groups and there's been a lot of engagement and consultation on this master plan. Over many years, many people will know the significant tree that sits in the middle of the reserve that has been a challenge to get the master plan right, because we're trying to fit so much into what is a small space. We've got a tennis club, we've got a footy club, a netball club and the Progress Association, and all groups have worked together, and I'd like to thank officers for the many hours of work, the dozens of iterations of different options, but I think this lands with the best outcome, where we can have a second court, really boost female participation in sport at what is such a really good football netball club, and it keeps growing, and so this master plan change provides that option for a future court if that growth continues. So I think it holds the whole site in good stead, so I'm supportive of this update. Anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Ross?
I do want to say I'm happy to hear that there's been extensive consultation, given we had one respondent to the community consultation mentioned in this report. So,
thank you, Councillor Ross. That's not, the one consultation, it's not a reflection of the consultation that was extensive, and I think that just shows that it's landed where it needs to be. So thank you. We'll now put that to a vote. Motion's on the screen. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you, councillors. That's passed unanimously. We'll now move to, thanks Ms New, we'll now move to item 4.10, which is the draft Berwick Village Major Activity Centre Structure Plan, November 2025 update, and we have Mr Michael Ford, Acting Manager of Growth and Investment, to introduce this report. Mr Ford.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, councillors. This report, for noting only, provides an update on the draft Berwick Village Major Activity Centre Structure Plan. Council endorsed the draft plan for public exhibition in May 2025, and this exhibition occurred over June and July 2025. There is strong community support for the draft plan, with approximately 70% of respondents supporting the draft vision and a majority supporting the key directions and actions. Separately, officers have engaged the Department of Transport and Planning to confirm the state's support for the draft structure plan and to ensure a smooth planning scheme amendment process in the future. The DTP has advised officers to await the release of its housing capacity assessment tool this month before finalising the draft plan. Provided the tool is released this month, officers will finalise the structure plan and a request for authorisation of the associated planning scheme amendment for adoption by Council at the March 2026 meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Ford. Councillors, are there any questions for the officer? No questions. We've got a recommendation on the screen to note the report. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Dowling moving. Councillor Rowe seconding. Is there anyone speaking in opposition? No opposition. Councillor Dowling, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, through you, Mayor. It was interesting speaking with the residents in Akuna about the Berwick Village area and the expansion and rejuvenation of some areas. But the thing that stuck out the most was 96% of the people we spoke to want to maintain the charm and the overlay, the heritage overlay that Old Berwick has. And I'm pleased to say that's the way we're working. We're still waiting on some more information from the state government as to some rezoning and that type of thing, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But yeah, it's fantastic to also include an upgrade which is in Pioneers Park with some safety, much more safety play equipment for the children, bigger footprint so families can enjoy it as well. And it's a fantastic place for people to meet, and that's what we want to do in most of our wards, is encourage people in the community to come out and meet each other and throw as many different events that we can do in that ward of Akuna.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Councillor Dowling. Councillor Rowe, would you like to speak to the motion? Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Eaves.
Thank you, Mayor. And before I get any calls, I'd like to point out that Cranbourne Village regeneration plans are being planned, and it includes Clydesdale Square. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eaves. Noted. Any other councillors want to speak to the motion? No further speakers. We've got the motion on the screen. I'll now put that to a vote that council note the report. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you, councillors. Carried unanimously. We'll move now through to item 4.11, which is the Growth Area Infrastructure Priority List, September 2025, and we've retained Mr Michael Ford to introduce this report.
Thank you, Mayor. The Growth Area Infrastructure Priority List 2026, presented for adoption, is a 10-year plan to deliver community, recreation and transport infrastructure projects funded by developer contributions in Casey's growth areas. The priority list is informed by strategic principles and supports council to fund, plan, design and construct infrastructure projects when and where they are needed. The priority list balances the timely delivery of infrastructure projects and responsible financial management, and provides transparency on the timing of delivery of these infrastructure projects, which also align with and inform council's 4-year capital works program and 10-year financial plan. The priority list responds to a recommendation of Council's Audit and Risk Committee to present the priority list to Council annually to enhance transparency. Going forward, this priority list will be reviewed and updated and presented to Council annually for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Ford. Councillors, any questions for the officer? No questions. We've got a recommendation on the screen. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Rowe moving, Councillor Walter seconding. Anyone in opposition? No? All right. Well, Councillor Rowe, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just very quickly, Mr Mayor. I remember to turn the button on. This is a demonstration of how fast this area is growing and the extent and the skill that we have in our community and with our council officers to take on the biggest area in Victoria and also Australia. So I'd just like to congratulate everybody involved in the development of these programs and thank them very much, and on we go again.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Councillor Walter, would you like to speak to the motion?
Through you, Mayor, yes, I would. This list of projects is quite extensive and aptly so, given the exponential growth in both my ward, being Clyde North, and Councillor Dazon's ward, which is Clyde and Turton. There are many, many, many projects listed on here, and that is desperately needed, as we have all seen how fast the housing has gone up in those areas, nearly faster than we can keep up with. And all of these public amenities will help have better community services. Some of those being some family and community centers such as Hardy's Road, and also at Springleaf, which will be adjacent to the new recreation center that'll soon to be open, as well as the Clyde North Precinct Structure Plan, which this speaks to.
Thank you, Councillor Walter. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Dazon.
Through you, Mayor, I'm very pleased to support the adoption of the growth area infrastructure priority of 2026. It directly supports our goals for improved connectivity, providing appropriate infrastructure, and responding proactively to growth, as briefly mentioned by Councillor Walter. I am also very pleased to see a significant number of projects in the Turton ward. My residents have been asking for better infrastructure to keep up pace with growth, and it's great to see that those needs are reflected in this pipeline. On that end, Mayor, as mentioned, I'm very happy to support this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Dazon. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Reeves.
Thank you, Mayor. These developments in the priority list are based on developers' contributions to these new development areas. Whilst we have a priority list, which is good, we also have medium-term projects, which generally those whose delivery is dependent on forecast income and/or where there is not yet sufficient demand for these projects. One of these areas with medium-term plans is Barton Reserve, and I'm very pleased to hear recently that the Barton Tennis Club pavilion and courts is earmarked to be commenced in 2027-28, so it's being built. Make my residents very happy. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Councillor Ambrose.
Through you, Mayor, this strategy is important because it ensures your rates are being used where they matter most, renewing and improving assets to all communities across Casey rather than not costly new growth projects. And this is the reason why. Land in new growth areas is bought using developer contributions, not your rates. Developers will build roads and infrastructure in growth areas, so council doesn't need to use rate money. And we won't use rates to pay for expensive state road intersection in growth areas. And new sports reserves in growth areas will be funded by developers and not by your rates. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Ambrose. Any other speakers? I'll just make a brief contribution. I think this is a really good addition to our administrative process as a councillor, but also from a transparency perspective. This is the first time this report's really been put out to the community, and I think it tells a good story about the work that we're going to be doing, but also, as Councillor Rowe said, the significance of the capital works projects and the work that we do to build new suburbs and new homes for residents who come to Casey. And it should be noted that we do it quite well in Casey. There's a lot of other growth areas that sit on their developer contributions and they slowly waste away over time, but we're quite proactive in Casey and we get our projects done, and it's something we should be proud of. And I think this is good for residents because it provides a list of the big projects that will be coming in the growth areas, gives them a sense of the work that's being done, but also how those are prioritised and how they'll be rolled out over the years ahead. So very supportive of this report and the motion. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion before we put it to a vote? No? Well, all those in favour of the motion on the screen, please raise your hand. Thank you, councillors. That's carried unanimously. We'll now move to next item 4.12, sale of land at 12 to 14 Vesper Drive, Narre Warren. And we have Mr Ford to again introduce this report. Mr Ford.
Thank you, Mayor. This report seeks a council resolution to commence community engagement on a proposal to dispose of council land located at 12 to 14 Vesper Drive, Narre Warren, described as Lot 6 and 7 on LP 140679. After a review of the possible future uses of the land, council officers recommend disposal as council has no future service use for the land. Disposal of the land presents an opportunity to support further investment, employment and development in the Fountain Gate Narre Warren CBD, and which aligns with multiple council plan strategic outcomes. Importantly, this report is the first step of a two-step process for the disposal of the land. If carried, after tonight's report, a further report on the outcome of community engagement and the recommended next steps for the disposal of the land will be tabled at a future council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Ford. Councillors, any questions for the officer? No questions. We've got a recommendation on the screen. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Ross moving. Councillor Pereira seconder. Is there anyone speaking against the motion? Councillor Perry. Councillor Ross, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. So this item is about selling land in my ward, and it's not a decision I take lightly. Every land sale that comes before council will be questioned thoroughly. It necessitates a weighing up of community benefit. There is always a risk-benefit associated with any decision. Is there greater community benefit associated with selling this site, or can council realise a better value if it holds on to it or uses it in some way? The land is currently zoned industrial, it's underutilised and surplus to council current requirements. Realising the value of this land will unlock land for light industry and future employment. This means more local jobs and services in the Fountain Gate Narre Warren CBD, which will contribute both to reducing transport-related emissions for local residents needing to access local service, but it'll also unlock money for other projects. We can't use this land for parks, housing or community facilities. The nature of the zoning means this isn't possible, and given the extensive nature and volumes of light industry around it, it would be out of place and it wouldn't be realising the best possible value for this land. But while we can't use it for purposes we'd perhaps love to be able to use it for, but the money raised by the sale can be used to fund projects elsewhere, including a potential use to support affordable housing in a more appropriate location. Environmentally, any decision of council to dispose of the land will not permit the removal of any vegetation protected under the planning scheme. A buyer would need to obtain relevant planning permits to remove this vegetation. Overall, council officers have assured me that there'd be a net positive community benefit and environmental outcome. We will not be losing any environmental significance through the sale of this land. Given the seriousness of disposing of a council asset, there is a process to follow, as has been outlined, and this is the first step. Moving the motion means the proposed sale of the land will be going to community consultation, so residents get to have a say. It is only after community consultation that a further report will be prepared for council to consider an approval to dispose. So if you have an opinion or a question, please participate in the community consultation process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Pereira is seconded. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just extremely briefly, this happens with council. Sometimes, the asset management requires a disposal of our land for whatever reason. It's a normal process. This parcel has now come up for potential sale. I do encourage the community who are interested to put in a submission, and then it'll come back to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No other councillors to speak to the motion? Oh, yeah, anyone can speak. Cool. Yep, you'd like to speak? Councillor Perry.
Yep. I'm speaking in opposition of the motion. I don't think we should support the sale of council-owned land at this point in time. We actually don't know, as councillors, how much land Casey holds. Councillors have requested this information more than once since I've been here, and we haven't got a list of what land council holds at this point in time. There's a general belief that land held by City of Casey belongs to all the residents of Casey. It's not just, the officer's choice or councillors to, our choice on a whim, because once the land is sold off, it's gone forever. And it's nice of Kim to say we'd like to do engagement and consultation, because we've done that in other projects. And it's great that we're opening up this plan for community feedback. But I think we need to decide what we would do with the community feedback. Like, do we listen to our residents? That's really up to us to make that decision. And can council really commit to actually listening and supporting our communities when they go to the trouble of providing feedback? That's a rhetorical question. It's just based on, the feedback we ignored earlier tonight. So we have councillors here that will do what the officers want us to do, but I think we have to act in the best interests of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Ross, would you like a right of reply?
I'd just like to say, that I agree. I really have to look closely when we're asked to sell off community land, which is why, taking into account where this piece of land is, it speaks to this is the type of industry we've been speaking for quite a while now. It is the place for industry. It is a place for local employment. So we desperately need housing. We desperately need to preserve vegetation, to increase our tree canopy. All these are competing priorities. We do also need to attract local business for our residents so they can work close to home. And so everything's important, and we're weighing it up. And on the balance, it makes sense that this parcel of land is being sold. It does not mean that every single time land comes up for us to vote on that I'm going to vote that we sell or dispose of the land. Everything is going to be taken on its merits.
Thank you, Councillor Ross, for that right of reply. We'll now move to a vote. We've got the motion on the screen. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Please keep the hands raised. Councillor Design in favour, Councillor Pereira, Councillor Eves, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Ambros, Councillor Cooman, Councillor Walter, Councillor Crowther, Councillor Rowe, Councillor Ross, Councillor Dowling. Thank you, councillors. All those against? Councillor Perry against. Councillors, I declare that carried. Thank you. All right, we'll now move to item 4.13, which is the PA 250392 for reduction in car parking requirements for 1 to 3 Lyle Street, Cranbourne. I will note, for the benefit of the audience and those online, this is the first proactive planning application that we've called in as a council. It was called in due to its public significance. It's quite a large project being led by council. While the decision around this was made earlier in the year, this is the planning permit that requires approval, so it's been brought to the public meeting today. I will now hand over to Officer Ms Tanya Asper, Manager of Planning and Building, to introduce the report. Ms Asper.
Thank you, Mayor. This planning permit application seeks approval to reduce the car parking requirement for the Cranbourne Community Hub. The focus on car parking is because a planning permit is not required for construction of the building or to use the land for a community hub. The Casey planning scheme requires 45 car parking spaces for these proposed uses in the hub. A total of 19 parking spaces is proposed. A planning permit is therefore needed for the shortfall in car parking. No advertising was required for this application as it was exempt from advertising requirements. A traffic assessment was submitted by the applicant and reviewed by Council's traffic engineers. The planning team also sought an external independent peer review of the traffic assessment. Both traffic assessments recognise that there will be an impact on the surrounding parking. Ultimately, however, the two assessments indicate that the proposal can be supported because the parking overflow can be absorbed within the precinct. We have considered this advice along with other factors, including the merits of the application. The site is close to shops, services, schools and public transport, making it easy for visitors to walk or use public transport. Overall, the proposed reduction to the car parking is supported and the officer recommendation is to approve the application.
Thank you, Ms Aspart. Councillors, do we have any questions for the officer? No questions. Councillors, we have a recommendation on the screen for this planning permit. Do we have a mover and a seconder for the application? Councillor Rowe moving, Councillor Walter as seconder. Councillors, is there anyone speaking in opposition to the application? Councillor Crowther. Councillor Rowe, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, Mr Mayor, thank you. Got the button. Thank you for the opportunity. Cranbourne's a very important place to me and has been for nearly 40 years. And all the time that I served in Cranbourne as the Member of Parliament, 6 years, previous to that, 3 years, I was dragged into council by the local bullies who were all farmers. And when you get to a certain age as a farmer, they decide that you will be sent out to the pastures. And this fellow came up to me and he said, "Gary, you've been around long enough. You're coming into the council." So I took that role, and subsequent to that became a councillor in the Kennett government, became a Member of Parliament. And I think all of those things about Cranbourne have made them so important to me in the way they welcome me when I come back. And this is very important. Cranbourne has been without a lot of assets being built. Yes, they've got a swimming pool. Yes, there's a football oval across the other side of the road, but that's in a different area. And you know, the other week we were asked to, is it possible to get another swimming pool? And working on that. But there's been a lack of something special. And I want to deliver it. Because I love these people. And hopefully they love me. And I do anything I can in the world to make sure they get their right due of growth. And this growth is going to be fantastic. We're looking at a building that's going to have the library, and we've got the 3 stories I think we're looking at for numerous other assets in there that people, whether they be reading books or...
Councillor Rowe, would you like an extension
Yes,
of time?
please.
Thank you. Granted.
I'm sorry I was a bit funny before, but that happens. The building is going to be iconic in the area, and it's something that Cranbourne has never ever had. So I'm very pleased to you support this project that the council approved in May of this year. The planner's report does identify planning scheme requirements requires 45 car parking spaces for the hub, and submitted plans provide 19 parking spaces, and this requires our consideration. But it's nothing of great mention. There is no doubt that there will be impact on surrounding parking. However, the overall overflow parking can be absorbed within the broader precinct. Care has been taken to ensure that the number of cars, or car parks and spaces is appropriate. Council's traffic engineers have reviewed the development details and support the recommendation. The planning team went one step further and sought other independent peer reviews of the traffic assessment and checked the findings. We have gone through this process to make sure that we are doing the right thing, and if this permit is approved tonight, officers will already be committed to investigate the pedestrians' connectivity, parking and any other amenity upgrades that will support the accessibility in the proximity of the Cranbourne hub.
Councillor Rowe, just noting your time extension
I do support.
Thank you. Thank you.
Recommendation above.
Thanks, Councillor Rowe. Councillor Walter is seconder. Would you like to speak to the motion?
To you, Mayor, yes, I would. This matter purely looks at the boundaries of the Cranbourne hub. In order to deliver all of the parking needed, whether that be basement car park, that would significantly increase the budget of this project of upwards of 25%. And I don't believe that that would be a wise spend of the rates. We have earmarked a certain amount, and we can look at the surrounding areas and either do a portion of time parking to have the turnaround be more advantageous to the users of the hub, or even create more parking on the side streets where there are very large nature strips that could be pared back. So I believe that this is a good option, and we've got lots of different avenues that we can go down to address the parking concerns.
Thank you, Councillor Walter. Would any other councillors like to speak on the motion? Councillor Pereira?
Just to clarify, yes, it's a little confusing. This is a planning permit specifically about the parking that's required as per the planning scheme. So there is a formula that is applied to work out how many car parks would suit a particular project. With this particular formula, it turns out that 45 car parks are necessary for that project. So because we want to reduce this, or the officers are suggesting it has to be reduced down, therefore they have to put the planning permit in. This is why we've got this planning permit in front of us. So it's solely about the planning permit, the reduction in the car parking. The way I see it is the officers have considered all of this, and the engineers, and the overflow car parking necessary there can be met with the surrounding area. So it won't negatively impact this particular project. So I will support this.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. Councillor Crowther?
Through you, Mayor, I am opposing the motion to grant a reduction in car parking requirements at this site. I'd like to make it clear I support the hub concept, and of course, like Councillor Rowe, I want to see Cranbourne receive the large investment it deserves. However, the weakness of this Lyle Street site is the lack of accessibility for the community, and this reduction in car parks will actually further impact accessibility. During the community consultation, residents overwhelmingly told us they would be driving to the Cranbourne hub and library. This is not about the hub building, but can they actually access it? As the report states, and as Councillor Pereira just explained, that it's based on a formula, and we are seeking to reduce this minimum recommended parking number by 57%, not 5 or 10%, but 57%. That's a lot of cars driving around the local streets trying to find a car park. During the day at the library, I see many mums with prams, disability groups, and many older residents, all groups who are very unlikely to be riding a bike to the hub, unlikely to be using the public bus or be able to walk the 400 metres from the suggested alternative car parks. So I do fear that the accessibility to this building is going to limit the success of this project. If this motion is moved today and the project proceeds, we need to work to improve accessibility for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crowther. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. There's a lot of valid points made. I just want to support what Councillor Crowther's saying in terms of accessibility. So it's very important that it's okay. You can park 400 metres away, provided you can get there safely and easily. So that is the main thing that I want to make sure happens in this project. So I support those points very much while acknowledging ticks all the boxes. I will be supporting the motion, but I'm putting trust and faith in our council officers to improve the amenities surrounding the hub, because there's a fair bit of work that actually needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Dazon.
Through you, Mayor, I completely agree with the points raised by Councillor Crowther. However, I think it's very important to note the advice that we receive from council officers, that if we don't approve this planning application, there would be a significant delay in the project. As mentioned by Councillor Walter, there'll be a significant increase in costs, which would definitely not be a good use of ratepayers' money. That's unfortunately the reality we're working with. In addition, I am also comforted by the previous resolution of Council that officers will be reporting to Council in 2026 on further work being undertaken to assess parking restrictions and pedestrian access in and around the Cranbourne Hub to ensure that visitors have convenient and safe access in and around the site. For these reasons, I will be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dazon. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No other speakers. Councillor Rowe, would you like a right of reply?
Not a very long one, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor
Rowe. Just like to thank the councillors for their support and recognising that this is so important to the people of Cranbourne. They will be know that they're being looked after, and the area in which it will be is an area that is, you wouldn't call it the most beautiful part of Cranbourne. It needs new, obviously, revitalisation, and I believe that this will be achieved by this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. On that note, we will now go to a vote. We've got a motion on the screen. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you, councillors. Keep them raised. Councillor Dazon, Councillor Pereira, Councillor Eves, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Ambrose, Councillor Cooman, Councillor Perry, Councillor Walter, Councillor Rowe, Councillor Ross and Councillor Dowling. Thank you, councillors. All those opposed? Councillor Crowther. Thank you, councillors. I declare that motion carried. Thank you, Ms Asper. On that note, we are at 8:04, so we're 2 hours in, and consistent with our governance rules, we do have the option to take a break, which I think would be the appropriate thing to do, given we do have a number of reports left. So I'll just note that councillors and members of the public, noting we have a lengthy agenda this evening, I'd like to propose a 10-minute break to tonight's council meeting proceedings under section 24.8 of the governance rules. This means that we will now place the live stream on hold for those watching online, and we welcome the gallery to stretch their legs and be back inside the chamber by 8:15 sharp to recommence our council meeting. Thank you, councillors. This break has begun. Thank you, councillors and members of the gallery. That concludes our 10-minute break as per the governance rules. I will now ask all councillors, we are all seated, so we can resume our meeting. And we resume at item 4.14, which is amendments C304 case, planning scheme corrections. And we have again Miss Tanya Asper, Manager of Planning and Building, to introduce this report. Miss Asper.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. C304 is a clean-up amendment to fix mistakes and update the planning scheme. It corrects clerical errors, fixes zoning issues and removes outdated controls that are no longer needed. These changes were identified by council staff, community feedback or during an internal review. Keeping the planning scheme accurate helps avoid confusion for residents and staff. Amendment C304 will correct minor clerical errors. It will update zoning for public land to better reflect its use, including Department of Education land to a public use zone for education purposes, as well as council-owned land to public park and recreation zone. It will also remove 2 development plan overlays in other areas where development is finished and the controls are no longer required. If Council endorses C304 for authorisation, the amendment will be submitted to the Minister for Planning for authorisation and approval with a request to exempt it from public notification due to its administrative nature.
Thank you, Ms Asper. Councillors, do you have any questions for the officer? No questions. We've got a recommendation on the screen. Do we have a mover and seconder for a motion? Councillor Crowther moving. Councillor Ross seconding. Councillors, is there anyone speaking in opposition to the motion? None in opposition. Councillor Crowther, as mover, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, through you, Mayor. I'd like to move the motion to update the Casey planning scheme. Whilst this agenda item looks like an administrative one, this change to remove outdated planning overlays will make a huge difference to our community in terms of notification of potential developments and the community's right to appeal. The Botanic Ridge community were recently surprised by the construction of a new development without any public advertising. But as the area was still covered by a now outdated development plan overlay, the application was exempt from advertising. With the removal of these overlays in areas where development is complete, it will reinstate the same public notice and appeal rights that other areas of Casey have. So I support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Crowther. Councillor Ross, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. So I welcome the removal of contradictory permit requirements regarding places of assembly in the Fountain Gate and Narre Warren area, which helps applicants understand the requirements and alleviates unnecessary confusion, because as we all know, navigating any sort of bureaucratic paperwork is hard enough without another layer of confusion on top of it. Given real community concerns regarding bushfire preparedness, I was concerned that on first reading, the CFA's preference to adding bushfire requirements to the Salem development plan wasn't included. Always on the lookout for when community organisations put in feedback. However, after further investigation, I was reassured that the existing bushfire protections in the planning scheme, clause 13.05, still apply to this land. Removing the outdated plan will not reduce these protections. And I think it's important to note that this amendment does not rezone land from a non-urban zone to an urban zone, and it does not result in intensification, significant changes or allow new use and development of land that may be exposed to natural hazards arising from the impacts of climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Pereira.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just want to say this, although this is administrative in nature, the consequences of not correcting these issues are significant. Planning errors can lead to delays, confusion and costly disputes. By updating zoning maps, refining overlays and ensuring correct policy references, this amendment strengthens transparency and legal certainty. So for our community, this means faster, clearer and more predictable planning outcomes, And for developers and applicants, it means fewer errors, fewer appeal risks, and a more professional and consistent system. This amendment reflects good governance. It ensures our planning scheme remains contemporary and that our decisions are made using accurate and legally sound tools. I support the amendment as a necessary component of responsible planning.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. Any other speakers? No speakers. We'll got the motion on the screen. We'll now put that to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you, councillors. That's passed unanimously. We'll now move to item 4.15, which is another planning scheme corrections, amendments C305 case. And we've got Ms Asper to again introduce the report.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Amendment C305 is about updating and fixing heritage information in the planning scheme. These changes were suggested by the community and reviewed by our heritage experts. The goal is to make sure Casey's heritage sites are recorded accurately as set out in the Casey Heritage Framework 2023 to 2027. In summary, C305 will update the details and correct errors for 9 heritage sites on the Heritage Overlay Map and in the planning scheme provisions. It will also add a new heritage overlay for 15 Redleaf Close, Hampton Park, which has been included following a request from the landowner. And finally, C305 will remove heritage controls from a site in Narre Warren North that has already been demolished. If Council endorses C305, the amendment will be submitted to the Minister for Planning for authorisation with a request to limit public notification to impacted landowners and occupiers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Asper. Councillors, any questions for the officer? Councillor Perry?
I do have a question. I'm sorry, I didn't ask it earlier because it didn't really, it didn't really pop out. But yeah, the heritage overlay you're removing from Narre Warren North Primary School was because the heritage buildings and all the large trees were ripped out during COVID. How did that happen?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I don't have direct knowledge of that. I'm happy to circle back post this meeting with some information.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms Asper. Thank you, Councillor Perry. Any further questions? No further questions. We have a recommendation on the screen. Do we have a mover and seconder, councillors? Councillor Pereira moving, Councillor Taylor seconding, and anyone in opposition? No one in opposition. Councillor Pereira, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just very briefly, thank you, Mr Mayor. Again, I support this motion. I just wanted to really highlight that I'm pleased to see the Hampton Park property listed for this heritage overlay. It doesn't happen very often, so it's kind of nice when it does. The house is actually not very far from where I live, so I didn't even know it was there. And then I spoke to some neighbours and I said, yeah, it's a beautiful old house, so it's actually really nice. I'm happy to see that being included, and I thank the owners for proposing that.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. Councillor Taylor, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Any further contributors or speakers to the motion? No further speakers. Oh, Councillor Ross.
Sorry, I was going to add that when you look around Casey, we don't have, apart from the beautiful Berwick Village, we don't have that many pockets of heritage, significant areas. So I think anything that can strengthen our case for those and support residents who do put their hands up and say, hey, I really appreciate the history of my space and my place is a positive thing.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any further speakers? No, we've got the motion on the screen, so I'll now put that to a vote. All councillors in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you, councillors. Passed unanimously. We will now move to item 4.16, which is contract variation for CT 000802 for recycling processing services. And we have Mr. Michael Jansen, the Manager of Sustainability and Waste, to introduce the report. Mr. Jansen.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you. Councillors, you'll be aware that I've reported previously regarding the significant increases to the state government landfill levy or waste levy and the impact that that has on our waste contracts. The variation in this report is to account for the waste levy impact on our contract that accepts and processes recyclables from the yellow lidded bin. This contract is affected because the contamination in the recycling bin must be removed and disposed of to landfill where the levy applies. The variation in this contract will require an additional $93,000 in the recycling line item for 25-26. However, expected savings in the overall waste budget due to reduced tonnages will cover the increase without the need to seek further additional funding. Next year, in fact, we expect a small reduction in the recycling budget. Councillors, we believe the variation is fair and reasonable given the impact of the state levy, and the contract contains a clause that allows for such legislative changes, and officers are seeking a formal resolution to support the variation.
Thank you, Mr Jansen. Councillors, any questions for the officer? No questions. We've got a recommendation on the screen. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Ross moving, Councillor Ambrose seconder. Anyone speaking in opposition? None against. Councillor Ross, would you like to speak to the motion as the mover?
Thank you, Mayor. So, feels slightly like deja vu sitting here. It seems like every council meeting we're asked to approve an increase in the money going to waste services. On questioning why this increase is needed, the answer is often because of unexpected increases in costs. Why? In this case, the contractor is exerting their right to seek reimbursement for the increase in the state government's waste levy. Notably, the levy was increased by significantly more than the CPI. This means that we need to find almost an extra $100,000 in the 25-26 budget. Yes, we've got it covered, but we still need to find the extra to pay. So I ask the question, is there anything we can do to stop this from happening? The good news is yes. Reduce the contamination rate in our recycled collection. My understanding is that it sat at about 26% in the last audit, meaning that a quarter of our recycling needs to be removed from the process. In relation to contract payments, that puts us in about the 25 to 30% range for contamination. If we were able to reduce contamination to the 20 to 25% range, there would be a saving of just over $700,000 for a full year of collection. That is not an insignificant amount of money. Now, I know I don't get it 100% right. I hope I don't get it less than 75% right though. And figuring out what can go in and out of has to stay out of your bin can be very confusing. There's a handy tool that's been introduced relatively recently which can help, and it's the Bin It Right app. So, listen up, my children. Unsure whether your empty pizza box is rubbish or recycling? Tip: pizza boxes only recycle if they're clean, dry and empty. So basically, if you've had a pizza in the pizza box, it goes in your rubbish bin. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross, for that insight. Do we have any further speakers to this motion? Councillor Ambrose?
Through you, yes, I would, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Ross, for highlighting those significant amounts and what we can do. So for me, why contamination happens, in the report it does stipulate that research highlights 3 common reasons for contamination: low interest, poor households with competing priorities, confusion, uncertainty about what can be recycled, and distrust, belief that the recycling isn't effective or trustworthy. So, as Councillor Ross did highlight, we can reduce it by 20 to 25% and does a massive amount of savings for our council, and that means ensuring better value for money and effective use for resources. What residents can do, which is download and use the Bin It Right app, which we've had some amazing social media posts on that. So if you haven't done yourself a favour, go have a look. But it was developed by City of Casey. Not only does it also provide you an easy search tool, it does bin night reminders, and check out, when it does need the tool, you can check out current disposal methods, more info in the Bin It Right app. And I want to reassure residents, all curbside recycling is sent to our processor for sorting and recycling. That's why it's important to bin it right.
Thank you, Councillor Ambrose. Any other councillors to speak to the motion? No further speakers. We will now put the motion as on the screen to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you, councillors. They declare that unanimously carried. We'll now move on to item 4.17, which is our final report for today. It's a contract variation CT 000772, aquatic plant maintenance. And we have Ms Nicole Young, Manager of Infrastructure and Open Space, to introduce the report. Ms Young.
Good evening, councillors, and through the Mayor. Tonight I present the report recommending the variation to contract CT 000772, aquatic plant maintenance. This report seeks council's endorsement to increase the utilisation of this contract to deliver essential aquatic plant maintenance and renewal works. The services delivered under this contract include items such as routine and scheduled maintenance, management of filtration and pump systems, management of chemical dosing systems, as well as spa and sauna maintenance. This contract commenced in August 2022 for an initial term of 2 years. Council enacted a first of 2 3-year extensions in August 2024, with the current contract expiry being August 2027. The scope of the services in this contract provides Council with the flexibility to have the contractor undertake routine and reactive maintenance, as well as critical repairs and replacements, where the contractor would then be responsible for the maintenance of that asset. The awarded contract and the first extension made allowances for maintenance to be undertaken. However, it did not include consideration for the critical repair and replacement works generated by the asset management plans for each facility each year. The variation is seeking to address the gap so that the contract can be effectively and efficiently used to maintain pool plant equipment and to keep Council's pools operational. The funds for both routine and reactive maintenance, as well as critical repairs and replacement works, did form part of the 2025 adopted budget, and future costs are considered as part of Council's long-term financial plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Young. Councillors, any questions for the officer? No questions? Do we have a mover and a seconder? We've got the recommendation on the screen. I'm going to move it. Councillor Crowther. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Walter. And anyone speaking against? No one in opposition. Councillor Crowther, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, through you, Mayor, I'd like to move a motion to accept the recommendation to vary the aquatic plant maintenance contract. Our community rightly expects a high standard of cleanliness and maintenance of our aquatic facilities. There has been many recent challenges, particularly at Casey Race, and this has led to the replacement of 2 boilers and upgrading the UV system. This contract variation will allow officers to respond swiftly to plant room issues and continue to deliver the high standard of aquatic facilities our community deserves. I thank the community for their feedback, and we are working with council officers and Align Leisure to improve the standard of our aquatic facilities across Casey.
Thank you, Councillor Crowther. Councillor Walter, would you like to speak to the motion?
Do you, Mayor? Yes, I would. As a resident who does use Casey Race, I have seen firsthand some of the issues that were laid out earlier by Councillor Crowther. And I welcome this, as we all would like clean facilities and clean swimming pools when we have our exercise routines.
Thank you, Councillor Walter. Any other councillors to speak to the motion? No further speakers. All right, we have a motion on the screen. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you, councillors. That's passed unanimously. And that brings an end to our 17 reports. Thank you, everyone, for your contributions. Thank you, Ms Young. We'll now move through our further agenda items. So item 5 is the consideration of reports of committees. There were no reports of committees noted for this meeting. No one else has raised their hand to speak, so nothing further on that item. Item 6, which is a standing item that we've included in our agenda as a new council, decisions made over $1 million under the S5 instruments of delegation. That is, of course, up to $5 million, as anything over $5 million does come to council for approval. Note that there were 2 contracts awarded during the period 1 September to 30 September, as noted in the agenda. Is there would any councillors like to speak to this item? No one to speak. I will make a short contribution. One of the contracts was for the Doveton Pool building main building renewal, which is a very significant milestone in this very important project for Casey. This building renewal will see a transformation of the existing building. It's a big step forward. Things are running on time, which is great for residents who'll know that we will hope to have the building open next summer. Obviously, the pool's closed this summer due to the works, but things are tracking well. Just like to thank officers for their time taking me through the project, briefing me, just to make sure that community's been considered and there has been consultation. So it's a really exciting step, and it's good to have this noted and have the contract signed. So just like to acknowledge that in the meeting today. Would anyone else like to make any contributions on this item? No further contributions. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move to item 7, which is petitions. There were 2 petitions received for this evening's council meeting. Do I have a councillor to table the petition for parking and community safety issues at Moorside Crescent in Clyde North? Councillor Walter, I believe that's in your ward. You would like to table the petition?
Through you, Mayor. We have received a petition for the parking and community safety issues at Moorside Crescent, Clyde North. It was submitted by Carol Williams and signed by 13 valid signatories. The recommendation would be that the petition be referred to the Chief Executive Officer to respond to the head petitioner and provide a response to the matters raised in this petition.
Thank you, Councillor Walter. I'll note that as tabled, and the recommendation will be actioned by the Chief Executive Officer. We have, do I have a councillor to table the second petition, which is for the Kramer Drive overflow car park?
Yes.
Councillor Perry?
I'll table the petition. So I don't know what happens in this case because it was agenda item 4.6, which the residents lost. But we've got a petition for the Kramer Drive overflow car park submitted by Sophie Kuzikov and signed by 104 valid signatories. And the recommendation I've got here, I don't know if it's valid anymore, but it is that the CEO respond to the head petitioner and provide a response to the matters
Yes,
raised.
a response would still be provided once the petition's tabled.
Okay.
Yep.
Should we have done this before 4.6 became an agenda item?
No, it sits on the agenda in the petition section in item 7, so that's in accordance.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. That's noted as tabled and a response will be provided as per the recommendation by the Chief Executive Officer, an updated response. We'll now move through to item 8, which is notice of motion, and there's one notice of motion for this evening's council meeting. The notice of motion 3267, which is titled Addressing the Lack of Crisis and Affordable Housing, and the councillor bringing forward that notice of motion is Councillor Pereira. Councillor Pereira, would you like to introduce the notice of motion?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Could we please have it up on the screen? That's all right, thank you.
We're just waiting for that to come up on the screen for councillors. Yeah. Presuming all councillors have seen the agenda item and the notice of motion as per the agenda, do we have a seconder for the notice of motion? Councillor Dazon. And we'll wait for it to come up on the screen if we can. Lynette, as mover, you can introduce and speak to the motion because it is noted in the agenda.
I've just got a speech, so that when the wording comes up, everyone will be able to see it.
Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Dizon, for seconding this important motion. This is something I did write a while ago. I do acknowledge, as reported in the quarterly report, that the officers are actually working on a new or updated affordable housing policy. So thank you for the work that's been done so far. So my idea of putting this notice of motion is to sort of put a framework around how I would like to see that formed. So it responds, this motion, councillors, that I've put forward, it responds to one of the most urgent challenges in our municipality, the lack of crisis and affordable housing. I think we all know that, we're well aware of that. We have rising demand from families escaping violence, from young people experiencing displacement, from older residents priced out of the market, and from workers whose housing costs exceed their income. The need is real, it is growing, and community members regularly approach me directly seeking help because they no longer know where to turn. Housing is not just shelter, it is the foundation for safety, stability, and dignity. Contemporary social policy still reflects the core insight first captured in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Without stable housing, one of the most basic physiological and safety needs, people simply cannot address higher needs such as health, employment, education, and belonging. This is why the internationally recognised Housing First model has proved so effective. It establishes a permanent, secure housing as the essential first step that enables individuals and families to rebuild. This notice of motion establishes a framework to address this reality. It calls for Council to take a leadership role by developing partnerships with state agencies, community housing providers, philanthropic organisations and the private sector. It seeks innovative models, fast, safe, affordable and high-quality housing solutions. It positions Casey not just as a stakeholder in the crisis, but as an active leader in the response. We all know that taking action now ensures we're not leaving our most vulnerable residents behind. It reflects our values, our obligations, and our commitment to community wellbeing. I present this notice of motion and urge my colleagues to support a proactive, solution-focused approach in considering all options available to us. And I do look forward to, I'm sure the officers are going to do an amazing job with this. There are so many different innovative things going on. And yeah, I commend this to you, my fellow councillors, and I hope you do support me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. Second, Councillor Dazon, would you like to speak to the motion?
Through you, Mayor, I would like to thank Councillor Pereira for putting forward this very important motion. This issue really resonates with me on a very personal level. I grew up in a very low socioeconomic household where I chose to work at a very early age just to help my family get through and have a roof over our heads. And that is why I completely understand how much stable, affordable housing can shape a person's life. For many families, it's the difference between security and constant uncertainty. That is why this motion is so important. It asks for a report on practical options to tackle the shortage crisis and affordable housing in Casey. And bringing a report back in February gives us something solid to work from and helps us to take meaningful action. And on that end, I would be very pleased to support this motion. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dazon. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Ambrose.
Through you, Mayor, yes, I would. Thank you, Councillor Pereira, for bringing this notice of motion to Council and addressing the lack of crisis and affordable housing. The growing lack of crisis and affordable housing in our council is a critical issue that affects the wellbeing and stability of many Casey residents. I personally attended the CISC facility in Narre Warren, and I personally donated some of my own food to support those people in need, and the wonderful staff, in particular in Narre Warren, and also I did visit in Cranbourne, and they're saying that how homelessness is in all shapes and forms. So this motion does call for a comprehensive report outlining practical and collaborative options, including partnerships with community housing providers, state, federal agency and private sector. We must look at successful models such as Housing First approach used internationally and also proven effective in reducing homelessness and improving long-term outcomes. We need to explore how our own council land, vacant sites, underused buildings could be also repurposed for affordable or crisis accommodation. At the same time, we must identify advocacy priorities to pursue higher levels of government to ensure Casey voices is heard and our community needs are met. The notice of motion is about taking real, accountable steps to address the housing crisis in Casey, and by working collaboratively, using resources wisely, advocating strongly, and we can help ensure residents have access to safe, secure and affordable housings. And in particular, I do like the fact that I've worked closely with Councillor Pereira with the Walk in Her Shoes event that we had at Bunjil Place, and that highlighted some really moving stories from individuals that have been impacted, and it's heartbreaking. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ambrose. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Ross, then Councillor Perry.
Yep. Yep. I just wanted to say, I think the City of Casey had an affordable housing strategy that lapsed over a year ago now. But yeah, as we're seeing housing become less and less affordable across Australia, we have to look at all options to provide affordable housing in Casey. I would hope, it would be great if what we do in Casey could be a blueprint on how this could be achieved across Australia, because the levels of government that can actually make a difference in this space really don't seem to be doing anything anymore. But yeah, as Councillor Pereira and the other guys said, communities need appropriate housing. My personal opinion is that housing is a human right and shouldn't be bogged down in investment, which seems to be the case at the moment. I know not everyone agrees with me there, but I think everyone agrees that people need a safe, secure home. And as Councillor Pereira was saying, people fleeing violence need refuge, and then we need accessible crisis accommodation. And food and homelessness services, they need something other than a sleeping bag or a tent to give people, when they've been kicked out of their housing because the rents have gone up, mortgages have gone up, and just the cost of housing. Whatever we're doing at the moment, clearly it's not working. I don't know how much we can do at Casey, but if we can do something powerful here, then it would be great if it could be rolled out in other municipalities. Anyway, if you could put all options on the table for consideration, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Councillor Ross.
Thank you. Over 30 years ago, I worked as a housing officer for the Ministry of Housing, and our waiting list back then we thought was large, and it is much larger nowadays. Lack of affordable housing is a critical and a stubborn problem and requires multi-level approach. But we do need to play our role, and we're doing our best. And I echo others' thoughts. It would be wonderful to be seen as a leader across councils throughout Australia. It's not just a councillor commitment to affordable housing, it's also a council officer commitment. They've taken on this that we've expressed since we were elected. We've met twice this year to discuss and give input into the new affordable housing policy that is a priority under the current council plan. In our last meeting in November, 4 options were presented, along with the comprehensive overview of risks and benefits. As an outcome, councillors requested that work continue on advocacy and working with housing partners. Additionally, we asked council officers to explore with more veracity how we can use council land and internal processes to support the building of more affordable housing. We meet next week for a 3rd time with an eye to developing the policy. Information we are receiving at this meeting is expected to include a review of the success and failures other councillors have experienced when implementing targeted affordable housing strategies. We have an ongoing commitment to make a difference in this area so that our children can afford to live in the community they've grown up in, that there are places where victims of domestic violence can escape to, and so that everyone has an opportunity to have somewhere safe to call home. Can I just have a brief extension, please?
Granted.
This will present challenges to our community. It will mean changes to your local area. This is a small price we have to pay overall, but the community will be challenged. It's a multi-level approach. It's not just us, it's everyone that has to look at this to give us some hope in addressing this very real problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other councillors speak to the motion? I'll make a brief contribution. I'm supportive of this motion. I think this reflects a real priority across our councillor group. We've heard from residents and we've seen it firsthand, the challenges and crisis that a lot of people are going through at the moment. Cost of living spreads into housing and a lack of affordable, and particularly crisis and social housing is real, and we feel it here in Casey. And I think there's more that we can do, and what I like about this notice of motion is that it's a bit of a marker that as a council we want to take this challenge on, but it looks to a suite of options and ways that we can try and tackle this, and I think we can do better in all areas, and that's something we're committed to doing, whether it's advocacy. We've seen a real lack of investment from state and federal funding rounds coming into our community, so there's more we can do there, but also looking at partnerships and potential use of land, taking into account how important it is, how we spend ratepayers' money, but finding ways to try and address this issue. So I'm really supportive. I'd like to thank Councillor Pereira for her leadership on this issue, and look forward to seeing this report come back with options for us to look at in the year ahead if this is passed today. Any other speakers? No further speakers. We'll now put this to a vote. Did you want to write a reply? There's no opposition, but you can. Yep, go.
I just wanted to bring this home because I'm just so passionate about this. You know, I've housed more than half a dozen homeless people in my home. This is something that, it is so real. I know so many people that have become homeless through no fault of their own, and this can happen to nearly anyone. Life changes in a second for some people. Things can happen. So without judgment, we look around and we see the people who need us. We see our residents who are struggling, and it is our responsibility to do something about it. And I have faith in this council. I think I've got a great council group. I think we are all dedicated and caring about our community, and I think we can do great things, and I'm counting on our great officers to get us there over the line. I want to see results. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. On that note, we do have the motion on the screen, so we'll put that to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you, councillors. That's passed unanimously. We'll now move, just noting that we are at 8:53. Approaching our maximum time for the council meeting under section 28.1 of the governance rules, which only allows for 3 hours, taking us to 9 p.m. So as chair, I propose a motion under section 28 of the governance rules to extend the meeting by 30 minutes, allowing us time to deal with the few matters that we have remaining, including public questions, in a timely manner, taking us to 8:30 as the proposed end time. 9:30, sorry. Can I have a mover and a seconder to extend the meeting by 30 minutes? Moving Councillor Pereira, Councillor De Lezon seconding. I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour for the extension, please raise your hands. Thank you, councillors. Carried unanimously. So we can continue on. I will note, I skipped over late reports, which was item 8 on the agenda. There are no late reports, but I just wanted to note that for the meeting purposes. So we will now move into, item 10, which is public questions. And before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge and thank all the community members who've taken the time to submit your questions, including some who have joined us in the audience today. I will now hand over to the CEO, who can take us through the public questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. The first question is from Shannon Lynch about traffic and infrastructure impact. Given the scale of the Cranbourne Golf Course redevelopment, what detailed traffic impact assessments have been completed to measure increased vehicle movements across Glasscox Road, South Gippsland Highway and Narre Warren Cranbourne Road? How will Casey Council ensure that local infrastructure, public transport and road networks are upgraded in advance to prevent congestion, to maintain road safety and to protect the amenity of existing residents during and after construction. And that question will be responded to by the Director of City Planning and Infrastructure.
Thank you for your question, Shannon. The applicant has provided a traffic impact assessment addressing the proposed development of the golf course land. This assessment includes peak hour traffic surveys and traffic projections. The planned intersections at Glasscox Road and Golf Club Road, along with external intersections, are expected to deliver an acceptable level of service now and into the future. Any permit issued will include conditions requiring the construction of these intersections. The Department of Transport and Planning is responsible for duplicating Glasscox Road to 4 lanes.
The next question is also from Shannon Lynch about community and environmental impact. With the proposed loss of a large green space and proximity to the Hallam Road landfill, how has the City of Casey assessed the broader lifestyle, environmental and health impacts on surrounding communities? Specifically, what steps are being taken to ensure compliance with EPA buffer guidelines, manage odour and air quality, and provide sufficient public open space, recreation areas and community facilities to offset the removal of the long-established golf course environment? And again, that will be responded to by the Director of City Planning and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Shannon. The Cranbourne Golf Course is private open space. The application proposes over 4.3 hectares or 12.4% of the site as public open space, which is above the 8% KC planning scheme requirement. The proposal includes parks and paths to support a healthy lifestyle. EPA guidelines recommend a 1,500 metre landfill buffer, reducible to a minimum 1,000 metres with an appropriate odour risk assessment. The site is 1,250 to 1,300 metres from the landfill. The qualitative risk assessment submitted with the application rates odour impact as low risk, which is supported by council technical officers.
The next question is submitted by Raymond Henry about the Building Act 1993. Under the Building Act 1993, shipping containers are classified as Class 10A structures. Can the Casey City Council confirm that shipping containers placed on council-owned, operated and maintained properties all have building permits issued as per the Act? If no building permits have been issued, please explain why the Casey City Council are not complying with the Building Act 1993. Local laws in Victoria, Australia, do not override the Building Act 1993. Again, the Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thanks for your question, Raymond. We can confirm that if council intends to use a shipping container for permanent storage on council land, a building permit is required, the same requirement for private landowners.
Next question is submitted by David Parr about pine trees removal. A section of pine trees on Princes Highway between Wilson Botanic Park and Lyle Road has giant pine scale. Upon their removal, will they be replaced with like-for-like trees or another species? After the disaster replacing native gum trees in a suburban area like Berwick, what is the City of Casey position? Again, the Director of City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
The removal of these trees was necessary due to the presence of giant pine scale, a serious pest that affects pine species. Council will not be replanting species that are susceptible to this pest. Our replanting approach for this section of Princess Highway will include the right tree in the right place in the right way and community input. Replacement species are chosen to minimise maintenance issues, enhance landscape amenity and support biodiversity without introducing known vulnerabilities.
The next question is submitted by Anthony Tassone about Clyde Rail Link. With Infrastructure Victoria's new 30-year infrastructure strategy again listing the Cranbourne-Clyde Rail extension only as a future option, what advocacy has the City of Casey undertaken to secure commitments from all major political parties ahead of the 2026 state election? Given strong community support and ongoing growth in the Clyde corridor, how is Council ensuring this project is treated as an immediate priority rather than something deferred to the next decade? The Director, Customer and Corporate Services will respond.
Thank you, Anthony, for your question. The City of Casey has advocated for the Cranbourne Rail corridor extension for over 20 years, including efforts to have Clyde Rail prioritised in Infrastructure Victoria's 30-year strategy. We are disappointed that Infrastructure Victoria's assessment does not reflect current or future growth and demand in the southeast. As a top advocacy priority, we continue to campaign for the Clyde Rail link to the state and federal governments, including meetings with MPs, budget submissions and partnerships with groups such as the Greater South East Melbourne Councils, Melbourne Councils Group and the National Growth Area Alliance. The City of Casey has repeatedly requested the release of the Department of Transport's completed business case for this project. We appreciate the support of local MPs and their efforts to advocate on this. We will maintain strong advocacy for the Clyde Rail Link as a priority project through its upcoming state election campaign.
The next question is submitted by Anthony Chisone about external council memberships. The agenda appoints council delegates to a range of external bodies, including the Municipal Association of Victoria, MAV, and the South East Council's Climate Change Alliance, SECA. Given these memberships involve annual fees or financial contributions, can Council outline how it assesses the value and measurable outcomes of such memberships for residents, and whether Council will publish an annual summary of expenditure and benefits delivered by groups like the MAV and SECA? And the Director, Customer and Corporate Services, will respond.
Thank you, Anthony, for your interest. Being a member of the MAV, along with every other Victorian council, provides council with strong advocacy opportunities at all levels of government, access to expert advice and resources, and opportunities for professional development, some of which councillors are required to complete as part of their role. Membership of the South East Council's Climate Change Alliance, along with 6 other South East councils, provides council with access to a unified, scaled response to climate action focused on carbon emission reduction and building asset resilience, including optimising external funding opportunities. The MAV publishes its achievements annually. SECA this year published an impact report analysing the benefits it has achieved for member councils over the last 20 years. Councillor delegates have the opportunity to report back at council meetings about the activities of these organisations, including value generation from membership.
The next question is from Viv Payne about the Hampton Park landfill operator Veolia. In view of recent findings by the Supreme Court of Victoria revealing a sustained pattern of non-compliance with obligations by landfill operator Veolia and imposing a $1 million penalty, will Council now do all in its power to ensure this discredited operator is never allowed to build a waste transfer station at its Hallam Road site? Will Council now put the health and amenity of its long-suffering residents first and foremost by closing the landfill once full, as promised so often? The Director, City Planning and Infrastructure, will respond.
We are aware of the recent findings. However, Council will not be taking any further action about the planning permit for the waste transfer station while the outcome of the VCAT appeal is pending. Further details about Council's position are available on Council's website. Council will closely monitor and review the outcome of the VCAT appeal once it becomes available.
The next question is submitted by Gillian Nambu about transparency and freedom of information release rate of information that is not heavily redacted. According to the City of Casey Annual Report 2024-25, there was a 27% increase in freedom of information applications compared with the previous year. To support transparency, could you clarify what percentage of these applications resulted in the release of information that was not heavily redacted and therefore genuinely useful, and how this compares with the release rate reported for the 2023-2024 period? The Director, Customer and Corporate Services, will respond.
Thank you for your question. The City of Casey reports all freedom of information statistics to the Office of Victorian Information Commission, otherwise known as OVIC, annually. A release rate is not a statistic on which OVIC reports. The reporting relates to FOI decisions released in part or in full. Casey's FOI decisions can be found in OVIC's annual report at Appendix A, Part 1, FOI requests sorted by relevant agency, and this is via OVIC's website.
The next question from Julian Nambu is about the comprehensive and holistically planned large development plans. For any major development, such as 750 Glasscock Road, the fact that a development plan is not mandatory does not mean one should not be required. A development plan would help ensure integrated open space, manageable traffic, adequate community infrastructure such as schools, and the protection of most existing trees. To ensure projects are comprehensively and holistically planned, will the elected councillors request a whole-of-site development plan process before issuing any planning permit? The Director, City Planning and Infrastructure, will respond.
Thanks for your question, Gillian. Council must assess planning permit applications against the planning scheme, which sets out standards for both developers that both developers and council must follow. Development plans are most useful for coordinating infrastructure delivery where there are multiple landowners. A development plan is not necessary for the development of the Cranbourne Golf Course, which has a single owner. The application provides sufficient detail for Council to assess the proposal and deliver holistic, well-planned outcome.
The next question is from Chrysantha Pereira about density in PSP areas. Of late, I have noticed that most of the lots that are being sold by land developers are between 200 square metres and 300 square metres. This has increased the density in the PSP areas and the traffic. I'm not sure whether Council is adhering to the density guidelines set out in the PSPs, as the infrastructure that is being built is meant to support only a certain density. I would also like to know the number of lots in each estate in the Clyde and Clyde North PSP areas and the NDA of each estate. And again, the Director City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
When assessing infrastructure demand, dwelling density or dwellings per hectare is a more relevant measure than individual lot sizes. Permits for new residential estates issued by Council generally align with the applicable precinct structure plan and its associated infrastructure planning. Given the scale of development in Clyde and Clyde North, providing detailed data on the number of lots and net area for each estate is not practical.
The next question is submitted by Rito Frahova about, is the DPO 1 now removed for College Drive, or by when will it be? College Drive has or had a DPO 1 overlay. During a 2025 council meeting, the advice was aim is removal of DPO 1 by end of this year. Note that in 2024, we were told by council that DPO would be removed by the end of 2024. Has it been removed? If not, what is the timeline and steps to have this completed? Conceivably, when could we possibly be subdividing? What is being proposed or has been implemented as part of this removal? And the Director City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Council officers have just completed a review of development plans in Casey, including Narrewarren South Part A. The review considered whether the development plan should be updated to align the minimum lot size with the low-density residential zone to enable subdivision to 2,000 square metres where sewerage is available. Officers will present the recommendations for endorsement by Council with a work program timeline in the first quarter of 2026.
The next question is submitted by Gary Page about 750 Glasscox Road, Cranbourne North. Planning and Environment Regulations clauses 13B1, 14B1 and 15D prescribe recording street address of land. Street address of Lot 1, TP 743551 is 750 Glasscox Road, Cranbourne North, which isn't the title for subdivision on P24-0697. Given street address of Lot 1, TP 743551 was recorded as the prescribed street address for PA 24-0697, has the correct title street address of 750S Glasscox Road, Cranbourne North 3977 ever been used for PA 24-0697, or was the incorrect street address of Lot 1/TP 743551 passed in referrals to authorities? And the Director City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Following the initial submission of the planning application to Council, the land was subsequently subdivided into 2 lots, resulting in a change to land titles. On 18 July 2025, the applicant provided an updated application form reflecting the new title details. This updated form and the new title information have been forwarded to the relevant referral authorities.
The next question is submitted by Gary Page about 750 Glasscox Road, Cranbourne North. Council received PA 24-0697 arborist advice listing trees for consideration to retain in 2024. Residents could only submit significant tree register nominations in April 2025. PA 24-0697 public notice with supporting documentation for residents was not published until October 2025. Without knowledge of plans, residents were never given a reasonable opportunity to nominate threatened red river gums and other significant trees on the Cranbourne Golf Course. Why didn't council officers nominate these trees for the significant tree register in April 2025? And again, the Director City Planning and Infrastructure will.
Council requests community nominations of trees for the significant tree register. Officers do not nominate trees. Planning protection of significant trees requires an amendment to the Casey planning scheme, which can take several years. Public notice of planning permit applications cannot occur until the applicant provides all the requested information, which was completed in October 2025.
The next question is submitted by Sue Lanigan about Cranbourne Golf Course. PA 24-0697 documents 3,813 Cranbourne Golf Course, neighbours and street trees, plus 51 group trees. Planning Scheme, Clause 52.37-2, states with a residence of permit isn't required for the destruction of canopy trees, other than boundary canopy trees. As there is a residence on the Cranbourne Golf Course site, how many river red gums, plus other trees defined as canopy trees, can be destroyed on the Cranbourne Golf Course without a permit, and how many boundary canopy trees require a permit? The Director City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Clause 52.37 of the Casey Planning Scheme was introduced after the application was submitted. The relevance of this clause to the assessment of the application is a matter of legal interpretation. For completeness, officers will address this clause in the officer's report to be presented at the 17 February 2026 Council meeting.
The next question is submitted by Sue Lanigan about the Cranbourne Golf Course. Casey's Planning Scheme, Clause 42.01, Schedule 7 and 8 reference the significant tree register to identify and protect significant trees, plus require a permit for their destruction. For the significant tree register, how many river red gums, plus other species on the Cranbourne Golf Course, have been assessed, how many added to the register, and how many canopy trees on the significant tree register can be destroyed without a permit under Casey's Planning Scheme, Clause 52.37-2. And again, the Director City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Clause 42.01 of the Casey Planning Scheme protects significant trees located in a mapped environmental significance overlay, an ESO. Given an ESO does not apply to the Cranbourne Golf Course, this clause is not relevant. Council requests community nomination of trees for the significant tree register. Council most recently sought nominations in April 2025 and received 18 nominations, none of which related to the Cranbourne Golf Course. Planning protection of significant trees requires an amendment to the Casey Planning Scheme, which can take several years.
The next question is submitted by Imogen Gill about the Planning Scheme Amendment C300 case, Stevenson's Road landfill. The exhibited documents for C300 case include a landfill gas risk assessment dated 2021. Can Council please update the community on the monitoring and analysis that has occurred since then? The Director City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
The landfill gas risk assessment dated 2021 concludes that landfill gas protection measures are required for development to occur at 39 to 45 and 40 to 60 Cyril Beachy Lane, immediately north of the closed landfill, Stevenson's Road landfill. This level of protection is still considered appropriate, and Council continues to undertake the aftercare management of the closed landfill, including off-site gas monitoring on public land.
And the next question is from Managing Gill about Microsoft Recall and generative AI. Does the City of Casey enable or intend to enable Microsoft Recall on its devices? And does the City of Casey use generative AI? And if so, what is it used for? And the Director, Customer and Corporate Services will respond.
Thank you, Amanjit, for your question. Council does not have hardware capable of processing Microsoft Recall, and as such it is disabled. Council has no intention to enable this feature in the foreseeable future. Council is conducting a pilot of Gen AI using Microsoft Copilot.
And Mayor, to advise you that and the audience that we received 20 questions this evening. There were 3 public questions that were received after the 10 a.m. Monday deadline. And the following submitters have been notified: Fred DeRita and Tracy DeRita. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Patterson. That brings an end to public questions. We'll now move to our final items on the agenda. Number 11, urgent business. There was no urgent business items received for this council meeting. 12, closed council. There are no closed council reports for this council meeting. And on that note, we now move to the close of the council meeting. But before doing that, I just wanted to, on behalf of all the councillors and anyone who is retained in the audience and online, we just wanted to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. This is our final meeting for the year, and we look forward to seeing you again next year for more meetings, and we thank you for your time. On that note, I will bring a close to this long council meeting, the longest we've had since we've been elected, and we look forward to seeing you all in the new year. Thank you.